Hennig here, 973 ESPN FM. 973 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks for birthday to Seattle City. And of course, we are all over the platforms, all over the place, online, on your radio, your computer, wherever you can get a hold of us. Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on 973 ESPN. We got a busy show today. A lot going on. A lot of shuffling of things going on here, so please excuse me if I'm a little things are moving and shaky right now. Let's just put it that way. So, but we got a lot to get to. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles, they made the first 53, but as of right now, they haven't done anything else. Their situation is, frankly, got complicated because they picked up nobody on the waiver wire, and nobody they cut got picked up on the waiver wire. Now, to some of you, that might not seem like a big deal, but it actually sounds like this team is going to get everyone they want back on the practice squad. So that is a huge, huge development for the Philadelphia Eagles. Also, this Ben Simmons stuff is getting wild. It's getting out of hand. So we got a lot to get to on the show today here on 973 ESPN FM. 2:40 p.m. Mike McGarry from the Press Atlantic City joins us as he does every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the Sports Bash here on 973 ESPN. Jason Fitz, ESPN radio host, co-host of Spain and Fitz, Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. right here on 973 ESPN. You can catch him today at 3 p.m. on the Bash. Jeff Mosher, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Also, Paul Hudrick, now with Liberty Ballers, former 97.3 ESPN Sixers insider. He will join us coming up at 4:40 p.m. to get more and deeper into what is next for Ben Simmons. We're going to talk to you guys today throughout the show about what is next for Ben Simmons, because this situation with Ben Simmons, it's not getting better. It's not getting easier. It's not getting less complicated. It's frankly getting more ridiculous as the week goes by. And leave it to the NBA to completely subvert one of the biggest football weeks of the year with Ben Simmons and Sixers. So we got a lot to get to today. Oh, and by the way, the Phillies have won 5 straight, and it seems like nobody cares. I was just talking about somebody in the office earlier. Here in the building, I was talking with somebody, and I said, the Phillies have won 5 straight, and nobody cares. And then she turns to me and says, oh, by the way, I was at the Phillies game on Friday, and there wasn't a lot of people there. So it's very obvious that the Phillies literally bombed themselves out of the consciousness of the sports fan caring too much. So we're not going to worry too much about the Phillies today. We are going to worry about the Eagles, the NFL, some college football talk, as well as Sixers, Ben Simmons. And of course, you can reach out to the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. DM the show through the 973 app. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on a Hump Day edition on 97.3 ESPN. We're going to get to the Ben Simmons stuff and the Sixers stuff in just a bit, because Joel Embiid has some very, very, shall I call them, interesting comments on Twitter, okay? But I want to get to the Eagles stuff first, because typically in a 24-hour period, if you're watching the rest of the NFL, players get waived, players get claimed, more roster moves happen. But in this case, it really seems like the Eagles either outsmarted everybody or the league just doesn't care what the Eagles are doing. Because I am honestly shocked that the Eagles were awarded nobody on waivers. Now, that doesn't mean the Eagles didn't put in claims, But the fact that the Eagles walked out of the waiver period without making a single move from the waiver line, and now they're able to build their practice squad almost uninhibited, is incredible. There were 27 claims on the waiver wire today in the NFL. 27 players were moved via the waiver wire after the cuts yesterday. And the Eagles were awarded none of them. And none of the players claimed were Eagles players at all. So what does that mean? That means that you might have to give Howie Roseman some credit. That means you might have to give the Eagles some credit for the fact that they waived and cut or released, whatever situation that player comes from, the right players. They knew exactly who to bail on to make sure that they didn't lose who they wanted. They kept the right players on the roster and they bailed on the right players. Nobody got claimed. Not Fulgham. Nope. Not Richard Rodgers. Nope. None of those guys. Jordan Howard. Nada. There's nobody the Eagles cut yesterday. Nobody the Eagles cut that anybody else wanted. That should tell you something. That should tell you that the current state of the Eagles organization is getting something right. Listen, I understand that some of you guys are looking at J.J. Arcega-Whiteside side-eyed and trying to figure out why on earth this team kept him, even though multiple people have put out there the exact reason why, and we will repeat it again here. J-Jaw made the team because of special teams. You may not like it. You may think that's ridiculous. You may think that's stupid. But the people who run an NFL team, you believe an NFL team doesn't know what they're doing. That's on you. I'm not saying they're right, but I'm saying they figured something out. The Philadelphia Eagles figured out exactly who to keep because everyone that they got rid of, nobody wants. So at the end of the day, whether you think the Eagles should have kept Fulgham or you thought the Eagles should have kept Andrew Adams, the safety, or you think the Eagles should have kept Hassan Ridgeway, whoever the Eagles cut or waived yesterday that you think they could have kept instead of somebody else, it was just proven in less than 24 hours that they made the decision to keep the right players. Now, that does not mean that this team is automatically going to win anything. It doesn't mean that they are going to win the division. It doesn't mean any of that. What it means is that for this round, for this moment in time, Howie and his people got something right. And I tend to give people credit where credit is due. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Now, listen, I understand. We got a message right now here on the show asking about saying, look, the Eagles really kept Tyree Jackson and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. That's from Jeff Bone and Pookie. And listen, Jeff, I get what you're saying. I totally understand it. Okay? Jeff listens to the show every day. He's a loyal listener, and even he is a little perplexed. Jeff, as an Eagles fan, I understand what you're thinking. But here's how you got to process it. The Eagles kept Tyree Jackson because they believe that if they released him, even though he's injured, somebody else would pick him up. And they want to keep him. It's literally that simple. That with Jackson. And I think the Eagles want Jackson on this team badly. I think that whenever Zach Ertz is gone from this team, Jackson is going to be part of that tight end position moving forward. The messages coming in here. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. But that's how I look at it. The Eagles cut a bunch of guys that nobody else wanted. And to me, at least for 24 hours, the Eagles are vindicated with their roster. That's how I look at it. Now, again, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside made the team because of special teams. And this organization values special teams way more than other teams do. Doesn't make them right. It just makes it a fact of life. It's just part of the game. It's just part of the situation. And listen, we got another message coming in. All right? Listen, I'm going to get to all your messages throughout the show here, especially this hour here on 97.3 ESPN. Danford Tuckerton says, my opinion, the fact that no one wants the Eagles waiver players shows that they lack depth. Agree or disagree, Dan? I think that it showed that the Eagles kept the right players. Because look at some of the players who were picked up. Will Grier was cut by the Panthers and was immediately waiver claimed by the Cowboys. Will Grier is better than Cooper Rush, Garrett Gilbert, and Ben DiNucci, who were all in camp for Dallas. Malcolm Perry, the former Navy quarterback, was picked up by Belichick. That shows you that Belichick is going to do. Don't be surprised the Patriots offense has some wrinkle in it. I heard the fantasy experts talking this morning about this might be the year you can pick up James White. Well, you know what the Patriots told you? Not so fast, as Lee Corso would say. I think that it shows the Eagles cut the right people. And I just got to give them credit for that. And honestly, listen, Dan from Tuckerton, Chris from Rio Grande, I understand where you guys are coming from. But the reality is that multiple teams called the Eagles about Dillard, about Jannard Avery. We know the Eagles were looking to trade Zach Ertz during the offseason, but they never got the compensation they wanted. So people were interested in players on the Sixers team. They just weren't interested in Travis Fulgham, Andrew Adams, Elijah Riley. They weren't interested in Jaquette. They weren't interested in Kayvon Seymour. They weren't interested in Jordan Howard. They weren't interested in Richard Rodgers. Am I a little surprised? Yes. But at the end of the day, Chris in Rio Grande, Dan from Tuckerton, the Eagles pulled a fast one. They figured out a way to work the system. And I think that is saying something. We'll get to more of your messages coming up throughout the show. Again, you can join the conversation as always on here on 97.3 ESPN FM, Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. I will get to Calvin's message a little bit later as well, because he has an interesting question about the quarterbacks in the NFL. But I got to get to this Ben Simmons stuff. So we all saw the Ben Simmons news come down yesterday. It's over on the 97.3 ESPN.com, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. But all of a sudden, it's now taken a new turn because Joel Embiid has chimed in. Not specifically about the Ben Simmons news. He has chimed in about the fake headlines. He had no comment about the report from yesterday that Ben Simmons asked for a trade. He has no comment about the Sixers trading Ben Simmons. He has nothing to say about any of that. What he is responding to is the salacious report from USA Today, a report that I personally would have never brought up here on the show if it wasn't for Joel Embiid's response. Now, before we get into exactly what Embiid had to say about Simmons, I want to remind all of you listening out there. I said it once. I've said it twice. I've said it 100 times. Be careful who you get your information from. You can't trust certain outlets. All right? Certain reporters, certain people. Because they're trying to get clicks. They're trying to get attention. They're trying to stir the pot. So again, nothing from Ben Simmons or his people or Joel Embiid or anybody denying any report that we have pointed to here on 97.3 ESPN. From the teams interested in Ben Simmons, to Ben Simmons asking for a trade out of Philadelphia, as he did yesterday, to the Shams report on Monday about the Sixers still making calls, trying to make a trade work. The Woj report a month ago saying the Sixers were working through trade offers for Ben Simmons. But apparently this USA report that I personally didn't even think about and care about until Joel Embiid retweeted it, is apparently an issue. So Jeff Zilgett of USA Today reports that the Ben Simmons-Joel Embiid rift has been escalating. A person with knowledge of the situation told USA Today Sports. Joel Embiid retweets it and says, "Stop using my name to push people's agendas." And B goes on to say, "I love and hate drama. I love playing with Ben Simmons. Stats don't lie. He's an amazing player, and we all didn't get the job done. It's on me personally," Embiid says. "I hope everyone is back because we know we're good enough to win." Now, Embiid goes on to say, "From my own experience, you all have no idea how much this media makes up stuff for followers, and shame on you for believing them." Embiid then goes on to tweet, "I haven't forgotten, but 2 years ago, I got booed. People in Philadelphia wanted me traded. I even shushed them. Only the real ones didn't, but I just put in the work in that offseason to be better because I knew I wasn't playing up to my potential. Philly fans, y'all also got to be better." Now, that's Embiid on Twitter. All right? 3 consecutive tweets. And then the 4th tweet, Embiid says, "For clarity, I love the criticism. I love when I'm told I can't do something. It makes me work harder to prove everyone wrong. But not everyone is built like that." So that's a series of Embiid tweets today. None of it was about Ben Simmons being traded. None of it was about anything else except for his reaction to a story that mentioned him. So again, I remind you guys, at no point did Joel Embiid deny anything about the other reports. He only, like Damian Lillard, got up and said, "Unless you hear it from me, it's not true." And Embiid confirmed what I've been telling you guys. You can't trust everybody who says things online. Now, this is not Embiid denying that Ben Simmons won't be traded. It's just Embiid denying that the relationship between him and Ben is not as strained as you may think. So at this point, I think Ben Simmons gets traded very soon because this is building momentum. This is building a situation. This has been building for a while. Ben Simmons has not grown. He has not improved as a basketball player. And as a result, his lack of growth and his lack of development as a human being at this point have hit a breaking point. He told the Sixers last week he wants out of town. And it's not because of Joel Embiid. And it's not because of anything else except for, guess what, guys? It's time to move on. We got more messages coming in here on the show on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get all your messages coming up on the other side. Sports Bash being brought to you by Clark's Moving and Storage in South Jersey. For your next long or local or long distance move, Clark's Moving and Storage is your first call. They're dependable and always show up. Visit them online at clarksmoving.net. Don't forget about the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Get all of the latest information on the Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, Flyers, and high school sports coverage in South Jersey, as well as listening to the show and messaging the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free, thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. Still to come on the show, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. We'll talk Sixers and Phillies with him. Jason Fitz will get a national perspective on how does the rest of the country look at the Sixers and this Ben Simmons situation. Plus, football at 4. The Eagles had no players claimed, and they did not get any waiver claims. What should we read into that? We'll ask Jeff Mosher, Eagles insider, at 4 p.m. And 97.3 ESPN alumni Paul Hudrick, now working with Liberty Ballers. He'll join us, talk more about this Ben Simmons-Sixers stuff, and latest NFL with Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports NFL writer. All still to come here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on 97.3 ESPN.
Turn it on. Leave it on. The Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Some people are easily moved. Wasn't that just the saddest movie ever?
Whatever. Others, not so much.
Oh, look at the puppies!
Just dogs, but smaller, so what? But even those who aren't easily moved.
Look, your long-lost brother's been found.
Oh, hi, Mike. Can be moved by us. Yeah, we're that good.
Use Clark's Moving and Storage in Rio Grande for your next local or long-distance move. Visit Clark's Moving and Storage online at clarksmoving.net.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Glad to have everybody on board the show today. However you're consuming the show, of course, all across all the multiple platforms, whether it's on your radio, online, on your phone with the app. We appreciate you guys joining the show as you do each and every day here on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget the Sports Bash being brought to you by JCPenney. It's the Labor Day home sale, and the deals are coming in hot. Get instant savings on furniture, mattresses, and window and shop doorbusters all day, Friday to Monday, while they last at JCPenney. A lot of reaction coming in about the Sixers, about the Eagles, with all of that coming up here on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, still to come this hour, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City will join us coming up at 2:40 p.m. and Jason Fitz, ESPN radio host, at 3 p.m. coming up in the next hour here on 97.3 ESPN. But first, I want to get some of your guys' reactions. First of all, got a message coming in over here over on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Charlie chimes in and says, all that stuff about Rich Paul wanting Maxey out of Philly was apparently not true. Yeah, Charlie, here's the thing. And, you know, I said this yesterday, and I've said this multiple times, and I got some flack for this, Charlie. Here's the deal. I keep telling everybody that there's this perception of certain things that are going on, or certain things that are going to happen, or certain things that should or did happen, and it's not based in reality. Look, there's multiple reports coming out in the last 24 hours that Rich Paul never asked for Maxey to be traded, that Maxey never wanted to be traded. Maxey wants to be in Philadelphia. Apparently, Rich Paul wants Maxey to be in Philadelphia. The only Rich Paul client that wants out of Philly is Ben Simmons. So, Charlie, you're right. You know, we got to be careful where we're getting our information from. And I brought this up multiple times yesterday on the show. This organization, if nothing else, has been extremely patient with Ben Simmons. They've shown extreme patience with Joel Embiid. And even though at times the fans have not reciprocated that patience, the reality is the organization has shown great patience with these players. So why on earth would they just bail on Tyrese Maxey? And what reason would Maxey went out of town? I'm telling you guys, you got to be careful about who you're getting your information from. Charlie's right. The Maxey stuff wasn't true. Embiid is saying the USA Today stuff wasn't true. But nobody is denying the Keith Pompey report, the Shams Charania report, the Woj report, the Brandon Scoopy Robinson report. No one's denying any of those reports. Nobody denied what Kendrick Perkins said a month ago on ESPN television. No one has denied certain things. So those are the things I'm going to run with. Mr. 305 chimes in with a very, very long message. So Mr. 305, here's what I'm going to do. Because I love the dialogue with you guys when you message in. I'm going to take your long messages part by part, if that's okay with you. Okay? So Mr. 305 chimes in and says, Josh, the Sixers are to blame for the Ben Simmons mess. Their job is not only to evaluate the player, but the person. Mr. 305 says Ben Simmons is a selfish jerk that only wants to play how he wants to play and will sacrifice team success for his own success. So I agree with you. The Sixers are in part to blame for the Simmons mess. I don't think Ben Simmons only cares about his own success. He doesn't care about the team. Because if he did, he'd be a ball hog and he'd only go out there and try to score all the time. Ben Simmons' problem is he defers too much. The Sixers cultivated an environment. The moment he was drafted, by the way, by Brian Colangelo, that was 2 executives ago. Actually, technically 3, but I digress. When Brian Colangelo was here, he said, we're going to take Ben Simmons. And Brett Brown tried to create and force upon everybody this idea that Ben Simmons is a point guard. So the Sixers have cultivated this attitude that, Ben, we don't need you to score. Ben, we don't need you to grow. We just need you to be a point guard. And because of that, they created a monster. Not Ben Simmons a monster, but the situation is a monster, out of control. Okay? I don't think Ben Simmons is a selfish jerk, but I do think Ben is complacent. I think Ben is not really interested in development because, in his own words, Ben Simmons has said, when he has been asked about the free throw shooting, when Ben Simmons has been asked about the three-point shooting, his offensive game, how teams play him, he has said to the media, I'm a 3-time All-Star. I'm a 2-time All-NBA first-team defensive player. Basically, in Ben Simmons' mind, in Ben Simmons' world and mentality, what he is right now is good enough. You don't win championships when one of your best players is content. Joel Embiid said himself in his own tweets, okay? Again, Joel Embiid today said, I love the criticism. I love when I'm told I can't do something. It makes me work hard to prove everyone wrong. But not everyone is built like that. You don't think that when Joel Embiid says that, he might be referring to somebody else? You don't think that the Sixers and Joel Embiid and everyone in that organization doesn't realize that Ben Simmons is not built like that, as Joel Embiid said this morning on Twitter. Just because Embiid loves the criticism and it makes him work hard to prove everyone wrong, I don't think Ben has the same mentality. I don't think Ben Simmons wants to prove people wrong. Now, if that quantifies him as a selfish jerk, Mr. 305, then okay, I can appreciate your perspective on that. Now, Mr. 305 goes on to say, the problem with Simmons, he's had guys kiss his butt year after year, no matter how he plays. I think there's a difference between people saying, I accept who Ben Simmons is, and people making excuses for him. Because I've heard plenty of people on this station complain about Ben Simmons' free throw shooting. They've complained about Ben Simmons' complacency. I've heard plenty of people complain about Ben and criticize him for those things. And I'm not going to name names, because I know Mr. 305 did in his text, but I tend to let people defend themselves when they're here. You name names of people who are not on the air right now, so I can't speak to those people. They're not here to defend themselves. Mr. 305 goes on to say in his long messages, Josh, I blame Doc Rivers for planting the seeds of excuses and blaming the fans for the shortcomings. He called out the fans and criticized them, and what happens next, the players start complaining about the fans, Danny Green, Joel Embiid, etc. I actually don't blame Doc because the seeds weren't planted with him. The seeds were planted with Brett Brown. We got to blame who deserves blame for some of this. Brett Brown was the guy who said, I want Ben Simmons to be a point guard. It was Brett Brown who said multiple things about Ben Simmons, multiple things about Joel Embiid, multiple things about this team and this organization that set a precedent. Doc Rivers only picked up where the organization left off. And we have a problem in society in general right now where everybody wants to blame things and no one wants to take personal responsibility. Okay? Whether it's the Mets and their players, whether it's the Sixers and their players, whatever sport it is, there's an attitude right now in the world of hypersensitivity where people don't want to look at themselves in the mirror and take personal responsibility for anything. Every pick I ever give out on the radio, and I've been doing these picks for football season, for UFC, for college football, college basketball. I've been doing this, since 2018 when the sports betting got legalized. And when I get something wrong, I grab this microphone and I say, hey, guess what? I got that wrong. I'm going to own that. The problem is the modern day athlete is so hypersensitive, they don't want to take the blame. They don't like the criticism. They don't like the heat in the kitchen. I think it's a general cultural problem. I can't blame directly Doc Rivers for that. But that's 305. I appreciate the long messages. I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate you engaging with the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Sports Bash being brought to you by Matt Black Kia. Matt Black Kia, they want to get you approved today. That's Matt Black Kia on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com. Coming up next, talk more about this with Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City right here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in on 97.3 ESPN FM. And don't forget the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. You can message the show and get all the content from 973ESPN.com right there through the app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City.
The Touchdown Radio Network season begins with a Thursday night Big Ten battle as the fourth-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes visit the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Head coach P.J. Fleck enters season number 5 with the Gophers as they look to rebound from a disappointing 3-4 record last year. Even with a new quarterback, the Ohio State Buckeyes are again eyeing a Big Ten championship and a college football playoff berth. The Ohio State Buckeyes and Minnesota Golden Gophers, 8 p.m. Eastern this Thursday.
On 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's football station.
GMS Law is proud to celebrate 50 years in business.
Hi, I'm Rob Stachini, and I'm a certified civil trial attorney at GMS Law. As one of the largest and most established litigation law firms in southern New Jersey, we're committed to our roles as legal advisors, counselors, and litigators. It's our belief that the client comes first, all the time, every time.
Make the right call to GMS Law. Call us at 609-344-7131. That's 609-344-7131. Or visit us online at gmslaw.com.
You can watch the Sports Bash live now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 97.3 ESPN or visit our website, 97.3ESPN.com.
Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash, filling in for Mike Gill. Hump Day Wednesday here on 97.3 ESPN FM. We'll get more into this Ben Simmons stuff, which has completely taken over the regional sports world, with Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. Joins us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Because, you know, Mike, on a week where we had high school football last weekend, right? We had the Eagles announcing their roster. The Phillies have won 5 straight games. But the biggest thing in the area, if you get the feedback from the listeners and the fans, is people all have something to say about this Ben Simmons fiasco, Mike.
Well, a fiasco of its own making, I think. You know, nobody told Joel Embiid to go on Twitter today and start tweeting out his thoughts on the matter. I mean, I woke up this morning, I thought Joel Embiid had been traded to the Mets with the advice he was giving fans. You know, it's hard to believe where this thing has sort of gone in a couple of days.
Yeah, and you know, Mike, I mentioned this also earlier, and I want to ask your thoughts on this really quick. You know, there are certain people as a general principle, right, that we listen to and we trust. You know, certain people who cover teams, certain people who cover sports, and you know, it's becoming more and more obvious that you just can't listen to certain people, right? Like, you know, if Shams or Woj or, you know, someone like Keith Pompey, if they report on something, that's one thing. These random people online who are putting stuff out there are really causing way more problems than there really should be.
Yeah, I mean, you got to just let the situation play out, right? I think everybody is kind of doing their best to kind of report what's going on. But, you know, let's think about what's unfolded in the past couple of days. Is anything happening that's really surprising or that we didn't already know 2 minutes after the Sixers were eliminated by the Atlanta Hawks? At that point, we probably knew that Ben Simmons was headed for, and the Sixers were headed for a divorce. And if you look at it, you can probably see that Ben Simmons probably wanted out of Philadelphia, and Philadelphia probably wants to part ways with Ben Simmons. So all this stuff is noise around kind of what we already know, is that Ben Simmons is going to be playing for somebody else next year, not because he's a bad NBA player, but because he's not a good fit with Joel Embiid.
Also, Mike, what about the fact that, you know, Embiid himself mentioned in his Twitter string that he said, listen, I'm motivated when people tell me something I can't do something, but some people are not built like that. I think he's specifically talking about Ben Simmons, Mike. I think that Ben Simmons is somebody who he has said himself to the media, the guys like you, when you go in the press conferences, I'm a 3-time All-Star. He reads off his resume like he has to remind people who he is. I think Ben Simmons is very content where he is in life. I don't know if he really wants to grow anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Ben Simmons wants or what he wants to do, but I will say this about Embiid's tweets this morning. I remain constantly amazed that professional athletes and professional sports teams in general, which are multi-million dollar, in some cases billion-dollar corporations, don't have somebody, you know, don't appear to run their tweets by somebody and say, hey, do you think this is a good idea if I should send this? Because Embiid comes out today and begins to tweet and says, well, there is no riff between me and Ben Simmons. Everything is great. We just didn't get it done. We want to play together. And then he says, well, the fans got to do better, you know, because I still remember being booed 2 years ago. Retweets a clip from, WIP where some fan says he's overweight and out of shape. And then he comes out in a final tweet and says, oh, by the way, I can take the criticism. It motivates me to do better, but not everybody's built that way. Well, everybody is interpreting that as a shot at Ben Simmons. So you come out in the first tweet and say there is no rift between me and Ben Simmons, and then you take a shot at him in the last tweet. You can't make this stuff up.
No, you can't. Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City joining us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 at AC Press McGarry on Twitter. So with all that being said, Mike, when you look at what's going on with Sixers and Ben Simmons, what do you think happens next? What are you reading on the tea leaves?
He's going to be traded. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, he's going to be traded, and we'll see what that trade is or how that trade unfolds, whether it happens in training camp, whether he reports to training camp. I know now, Keith Pompey, excellent reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer, reported that, Simmons says he won't show up for training camp. We'll see. Maybe, we'll see what happens. I do know that, the Sixers are slated to pay him $30 million this season. So, we'll see if he shows up or doesn't show up. We'll see how it unfolds, but it's clear that Ben Simmons is going to be traded at some point. It's just a matter of what he is, kind of traded for. And I've always felt all along, I've maintained all along, that the Sixers aren't going to be in a position where they can just send Ben Simmons somewhere and get what they need back. They're going to have to either get a third team involved or package Ben Simmons with Maxey, Thibault, and several draft picks to get a player in here who can create offense for himself and teammates in the fourth quarter of playoff games.
Mike, do you think that all these reports are going to hurt the Sixers' return and what they could have gotten for Ben Simmons? Have they lost leverage in some of these trade discussions?
I don't think they've lost any leverage. I mean, again, people watch the playoffs. People in the NBA watch the playoffs. We saw what Ben Simmons was in the playoffs. The NBA guys are smart. They see that he does not fit with Embiid here, but does he fit with a team of shooters like Golden State? Boy, he'd be pretty good there if he was playing with those guys. So if you're thinking, and I never thought it from day one, if you were the type of person, and we've heard some of the supposed offers the Sixers have asked for, if you thought you were dealing Simmons and getting a king's ransom in return, I think you were crazy from the start. I never thought that. I thought that it was going to be the Sixers having to pack in stuff, the Sixers having to throw Thibault in, the Sixers having to throw Maxey in, the Sixers having to throw 3 or 4 first-round draft picks in to get back the player that they wanted with Simmons. I never saw it after you watched the playoffs. I mean, the guy was benched in the fourth quarter playoff games. So, I mean, these people that thought you were going to trade him and get 4 or 5 guys back, it's ridiculous. I thought it was going to be the other way from the beginning. So in my eyes, his value hasn't diminished, maybe in some people's eyes, but in my eyes, it kind of is what it is right now.
I'm only asking this as a devil's advocate question. This is not my opinion, but I'm wondering, were some of those trade demands, was Daryl Morey, pulling the whole, I'm going to ask for something that was too much and then hopefully get something a little less than that?
Well, possibly. I mean, that's negotiations, right? Ask for the moon and see what you can get back. So who knows whether they were true or not. Maybe they're testing the market. Maybe they wanted to see, hey, what is he worth? Things like that. So, but again, I always thought that it was going to have to be that Simmons was going to be the lead figure, the number one figure in a package that the Sixers were going to have to get a player back that could put them over the top. I always thought it was going to be the Sixers giving up more than they got back if you just count bodies and assets, basically.
Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City joins us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Check out all of his coverage of the Sixers, Phillies, high school sports, and more over at pressofatlanticcity.com. Mike, I did want to ask you about the Phillies because, this team is now all of a sudden winning, and it seems like the majority of fans don't care. But I can't get over the fact that this team, they couldn't score runs for weeks on end. And now, since August 26th, they've scored 7 or more runs in every game. And then with a bizarro lineup last night, they scored 12 runs. They've won 5 games in a row. I mean, did this team just have to go find themselves again? What is going on here?
No, it's the schedule, right? It's the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Washington Nationals, and give them credit because they've done what they've had to do. I mean, they finally straightened up and took 3 or 4 against the Diamondbacks, and the Nationals are I even hesitate to insult AAA because I thought the Phillies played with a AAA kind of lineup last night. Maybe the Nationals are a AA type of team. So, and we talked about this, right? We said this was the key stretch for the Phillies, and they have taken advantage. They had the Diamondbacks and the Nationals. The Braves are out there playing the Dodgers, who I think went 21-6 in August. Took the first 2 from the Braves, and the lead's down to 2.5. It could be down to 2 tonight, if the Dodgers beat the Braves again. So the Phillies have done what they've had to do to get back in this race. But I think it's the schedule that they've fattened themselves up against offensively. And a big series coming up, right? They go to Miami, which has always been a house of horrors for them, and then the Brewers. So we'll see how it unplays from there. But somebody asked me the other day, are the Phillies in a pennant race? Yeah, they're in a pennant race. The math says they're in a pennant race. They're in a pennant race. They're 2.5 games back with a month to go. So they're playing meaningful baseball games every night.
And speaking of that schedule, Mike, listen, over the weekend in Miami, it doesn't get any better than throwing out there Gibson, Suarez, and Wheeler in Miami. I mean, your odds go up, and you only face one of Milwaukee's big 3 pitchers in Milwaukee. You got Woodruff on Monday, but you don't face Burns. There's no Peralta out there right now. So, in many ways, this road trip is still looking, pretty good for them to keep, stacking up wins.
Yeah, absolutely. However, again, let's keep in mind they are the Phillies. So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves and give them more credit than they deserve. Let's just take it on a day-by-day basis. I think one thing they've proven is they can't look at any game on the schedule and say, well, that's a W. So they're just not good enough to do that. So we'll see what happens. But, it was looking pretty bleak, a week ago. And we said this was a key part of the schedule, a key chance for them to get back in the race. And that's exactly what they've done. So give them a lot of credit. 2.5 back as September begins. Obviously you'd rather be leading the division, but, you're in a pennant race.
One more thing for you, Mike, before I let you go. I want to ask, are the Phillies going to be able to sustain this because of the fact of, we see Hoskins is done for the year. Who knows when Zach Eflin's coming back? This lineup is shuffling guys in and out because of injuries all over the place. I mean, do they have what it takes to survive all this bend? I mean, I know the roster's expanded to 28, but man, I mean, I had to look up who Matt Vierling was yesterday. Right. I had to do research on it.
Yeah, it is a little bit of smoke and mirrors. The one good thing for the Phillies, although Eflin is out, they're still throwing out quality starters in Nola, Wheeler, Suarez, and Gibson. I can't say too much about or can't say enough, however, about how big Gibson and Suarez have been sort of solidifying that back end of the rotation. So you're still throwing 4 quality starters out there, and that's giving you a chance every day. With a lot of days off in September, maybe they can kind of pitch around Matt Moore a little bit. He wasn't good last night. They still won the game. But the fact that they can throw 4 quality starters out there every night, gives them a chance to win a game, and then maybe a piece together. And then the other guy I think you got to give the huge credit to is just Bryce Harper. We talk about, people not getting it, people not performing, people not living up to his contract. Bryce Harper is carrying the Phillies right now. He hasn't made a wrong move since he's been here. He hasn't said an incorrect thing since he's been here. He's really embraced what it means to play in a Northeast city where sports are important. And he deserves all the credit in the world because he's really kind of put the Phillies on his back here the past month. And again, I can't say enough about what he's done, especially when you see what's happening up in New York and you see some of the Embiid tweets today. Bryce Harper looks a little bit better and better when you hear him talk after games about what it means to play in Philadelphia for his teammates, the organization, and fans.
Yeah, Harper's becoming a legend in Philadelphia at this point. It's pretty awesome to watch. He's Mike McGarry. He'll be back on Friday's edition of the Sports Bash. Follow him on Twitter at @ACPressMcGarry and all the coverage over at pressofatlanticcity.com. Mike, always appreciate the conversation.
All right, Josh, we'll see you later. Thanks.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Still to come, Jason Fitz from ESPN radio host will join us coming up at the top of the hour. Next, also football at 4, Jeff Mosher, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, He will join us at 4 p.m. to get more into the Eagles and more Sixers talk with you guys and your messages on the other side as well. Keep them coming. Don't forget the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Priority messaging into the show thanks to First Bank of Seattle City.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. The Eagles open the 2021 season next Sunday in Atlanta against the Falcons.
Ryan back. Here comes the rush. He's hit. They've got him back at the 35.
Pre-game coverage begins at noon. Merrill and Mike call all the action starting at 1. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station.
Goodyear believes in the power of moving.
South Jersey's play-by-play home for the Eagles,
Touchdown!
Sixers, and Flyers.
He scored!
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station.
Hump Day Wednesday edition of the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks to First Bank of Sea City. He joins us each week here on 97.3 ESPN. He's the co-host of Spain and Fitz, 7 o'clock tonight on 97.3 ESPN. He is the one and only Jason Fitz, and he's good to have him back on board. We got a lot to touch on with him here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Jay, long time no see. How you been, man?
Man, I'm good. How are you?
You know what? I'm doing all right, but I got to tell you, it's a little ridiculous how in a week where the NFL is setting up rosters and college football is this weekend and baseball pennant races, but the one thing that has Philadelphia sports fans losing their mind right now is Ben Simmons. So I got to start there because I got to ask you, what is the national perspective on this Simmons stuff? Because it seems like from the Shams report on Monday to Keith Pompey's report in the Philadelphia Inquirer yesterday, everyone is reporting this stuff, and it seems like there's a lot of fire behind this smoke.
Yeah, the thing of it is there's fire in the want to do a deal, and for Ben, there's fire in the want to get out. I just can't put my head around what value there is. I mean, the fact is every fan base, every GM, every team owner watched the same thing in the playoffs, right? We all saw those moments, and that is going to be seared in everybody's brain. So while I have smart basketball people telling me constantly, hey, there is still value to Ben Simmons, the fact is there's not going to be enough value to Ben Simmons to really make it worthwhile for Philly to do anything right now. I genuinely think that as much as Ben Simmons wants to come in and say, hey, I don't want to be here, as much as Philly may want to move on from him, they're going to be stuck together. It's like a divorce that is happening, but neither side can afford to live apart with each other. They're going to have to live together until they can find a situation somewhere that at least appeases everybody in the process. But realistically, Philly still wants a king's ransom, and nobody's going to give them that for a player that, in the court of public opinion, is damaged goods.
And Jason, part of the report yesterday was what Kendrick Perkins said a month ago on ESPN television, that Ben Simmons might not even report to camp. If there's no Ben Simmons at training camp and he's just going to play this, sit it out, disappear game, what do you do then? Does that accelerate the situation? I had people messaging the show saying that the Sixers should let Ben Simmons rot for a year and make him wait until they trade him.
Yeah, well, I don't necessarily look that there's the short-term, long-term approach to this, right? And the way the NBA has become, it's become such a players movement league that a player can come in and say, fine, you don't like this, I'm just going to sit out. And everybody reacts to that so quickly. Well, I guess I would say to Philly, all right, whatever happens at this point. If Ben Simmons wants to sit out, it's only going to hurt his value because everybody at this point knows that you're not going to be able to get much for him. So if you were already dug in on needing to get a certain number of picks and players in return, him sitting out doesn't help that cause. So at some point, as an organization, you've got to essentially man and woman up and look at all of your players and say, okay, what you want is cute. People in hell want ice water too. Like, I want to be on the morning show, making 7 figures a year. We don't all get what we want out of the gates, right? Like, sometimes you just have to wait through the process of what happened. So you've got to look at what the way this is all going down for Ben Simmons and say, if he thinks he's forcing anything, I think he's only hurting his leverage because the Sixers will get so little in return if he forces this situation that I'm not sure it really isn't beneficial for them to say, all right, let a year of your prime earning world just rot away, and then let's see what you've got left. I think that would be an interesting situation, and Philly's in the right spot to do it.
Does the Joel Embiid tweet storm that he had earlier today exasperate anything? Because even though Joel Embiid went out saying, me and Ben are great, I love Ben, he ends the string by saying, I love criticism, but not everyone is built like me. It's almost like Joel Embiid is saying, I love Ben, but he ain't me. He can't take the criticism. That comes off pretty bad, Jason.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, look, But that also tells you that Embiid knows exactly what this entire situation is. And as much as we all speculate about players and teams and their relationships, if I'm Philly, the first thing I'm doing with Embiid is I'm sitting him down and I'm saying, here's what we're doing with Ben, and here's why. Here's our plan of approach. Here's the way we're going to handle it from a business standpoint. We might not all like the decisions our bosses make, but when your boss has the you-know-whats to sit down across from you and say, here's how we're going to do it, here's why we're going to do it that way, you have to respect that at some point. And I think what matters here for Embiid is for Philly to come in and say, we've got a plan, and that plan means we think we can get this in return. And if Ben does that, then we're going to make him sit and rot. Okay, at least Embiid knows, and I don't think there's any love lost in a way that suddenly you're not getting Embiid coming in saying, you guys can't do Ben dirty like that. That's not going to work. Like, he's not fighting for that. So I think the organization is in a really good spot as long as they are transparent with the stars behind the scenes on what is happening and why.
Jason Fitz, co-host of Spain and Fitz, joining us right now on 97.3 ESPN. Catch him tonight at 7 p.m. as him and Sarah are finally back together, which is always nice to hear you two actually together and not, talking about each other in separate places. That's always a good thing. But a bigger picture question I have, because Joel Embiid also tweeted about the fans, right? And we heard what the Mets said and what they did, how they reacted. Jason, what is your perspective on all this? These people, at least my perspective, they're all coming off so sensitive, man. It's all like, oh, the fans said this. It's like, what happened? Like, whatever happened to a world where people were just like, I don't care what anybody says, or I'm going to use it as fuel. Like, last time I checked, Michael Jordan used half of his Hall of Fame speech to complain about what everyone said about him. Like, what happened to that?
Yeah, I think there's a middle ground on all of it from both sides, right? Like, and I'm always transparent. Like, I do what I do because of my fandom, right? It's not that long ago that I was sitting there yelling at ESPN just like everybody is now, right? And so for me, the one thing about it is this, and I hear a lot, and I've heard this a lot on social media, well, we pay their salaries. No, let's be really clear. You don't. You pay the team, and the team pays their salaries. So there is a massive middleman in the middle of all of this. And in my mind, if fans want to boo a player, absolutely they're right. Also, if players want to boo the fans, absolutely they're right. And that's okay. Like, we don't have to love all of our favorite team's players, and they don't have to love all of us. We just all have to find a way to work together for success. And that's the portion of it I think that matters the most. To me, and I used this example last night on air, if I go into a hardware store, I went into Lowe's the other day and they had this like Halloween animatronic thing I wanted and couldn't find an employee anywhere. And I'm running around the whole store looking for him. He finally comes up. He's kind of rude. He scans it and he's like, we don't have any in stock. And he just walks away. So I ordered it on the app. But in the moment, I didn't look at him and say, hey, man, I'm paying your salary. I'm buying stuff at Lowe's. I pay for you. You are going to be nice. If I go to Starbucks and there's a really long wait for coffee, do I look at the barista and say, wait a minute, I'm paying your salary? No, but we do this with athletes, and I just don't understand it. Understand that what we pay for is the right to go to a game. And when I go to the Raiders Monday night opener in a couple of weeks, I will have been paying money to the Raiders, not to Derek Carr. And if Derek Carr has a bad game and I want to boo him, he can boo me right back. At the end of the day, we all need to just relax on all of this. But remember one important thing that we all say, winning cures everything. I mean, Javi Baez goes in, wins the game. 2 nights ago, he won the game from getting home from first, right? Like, are we saying the same things about him now? So winning will cure all of that for everybody.
That is true. That is true. Jason, also, you are heavily involved in college football coverage. And by the way, everyone check out Jason's retweet of what he went through in Atlanta, because first of all, the spread you guys had down there is one of the most epic things I've ever seen in my life. Like, that's enough food to supply some people for a week, for goodness sake.
Yeah, no, we're riding fancy now. It's funny because we started this whole digital world, especially. I'll never forget, I started my first digital show was our first digital show ever for ESPN. They'd never done one. And it was me sitting on Mike Golick Jr.'s couch for a playoff rankings reaction show. And I was wearing an inflatable Halloween costume, like looking like an idiot. No idea. And they were literally doing the show on iPhones. And now there's these massive crews and everybody's there and all these big sponsors. And like, it's a surreal moment when you look around and you say, man, things are going, like, at least people are starting to notice those. And I'll be tweeting out, by the way, my entirety of my digital schedule for college football and the NFL. But, in addition to 5 days of radio, about 6 days a week, I'll be on covering anything with a football on our digital platform. So it's cool that we've gotten that far.
It's awesome. And I got to ask you about college football, because I'm probably the most college football obsessed person in the building. Let me tell you otherwise. I am a straight up guys watching from 12 to 12, basically. So I got to ask you, this is a crazy weekend. Thursday through Monday, you have all these games, and it's like, is there a game that stands out to you? Like, I know everyone loves the Clemson-Georgia game, but it's like, is there a game that's not Clemson-Georgia that's got you salivating?
Yeah, so, and look, I think there's a couple of games that stand out on the list other than Clemson-Georgia. And let's remember, for Clemson and Georgia, no matter what happens in that game, neither team's really going to be eliminated from a national championship competition. I do think it's going to be interesting to see Miami against Alabama. I think the Tide are going to just crush them. But what's interesting to me is now that there's over $1 billion in De'Ara King's pocket from name, image, likeness as Miami's starting quarterback, what's the pressure situation like around him? That's really interesting to me. And I'll also say the same with Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State opening up on Thursday against Minnesota. There has got to be, at some point, Minnesota's got to be able to be competitive in these types of games. And if you can't be competitive with a new starting quarterback situation, I understand that Ohio State brings back a ton of real weapons, but I'm really looking straight at Minnesota saying, hey, if everybody believes in Minnesota and the row the boat thing, at some point you got to be able to row the boat to some level of competitiveness. So I think that matters a lot going into the weekend. And Penn State, Wisconsin, also sneaky to get out of the gates. Like to get that sort of a game is a little surprising to me, to have that come so early when those programs need signature wins.
So I need you to settle a little debate for me, because I've heard countering opinions this week about two specific games. I want to start with the Boise State UCF. I've heard one side of the stable say, hey, Boise's going to hot Florida. They're going to be able to handle the heat and the humidity down there. And the other side I've heard is, well, UCF can't play defense because of Gus Malzahn. So, which side is right? How do you look at this game?
I think that game is going to be actually, they're both a little bit right. UCF isn't going to be a good defensive team, but I'm not sure that Boise State can really take advantage of it. UCF can score points from anywhere, and they've really become sort of a rack and reload. There are certain programs, Cincinnati, Memphis, UCF, in that AAC world, that have found a way to continually put playmakers in its skill positions that seem to be forgotten about everywhere else. So I think UCF can still generate points. You're talking about one of those electric video game type games. I think UCF wins it and reminds us all that UCF is playing for something this year. They are playing for a Big 12 invite that they desperately want to get. So I think you can see some greatness out of them in that, offensively, at least. They'll be showing the Big 12, hey, we're ready for you. We don't play defense, but we can score points.
Now, the other game I want to ask you about that I've heard a lot of confliction about is LSU UCLA. Because I've heard one side of the line that says Ed Orgeron is going to rally the troops. They're going to fight for the homeland. They're going to go out to UCLA and crush them for Louisiana. I've heard the other side say LSU's whole schedule is off this week and UCLA is at home comfortable.
Yeah, and I think UCLA getting an extra game in already helps them get some of those yips out, right? Like, I'm all in on UCLA being able to be a real threat here. And the other sneaky part of that is I think this is the year that Coach O is suddenly right back on the hot seat. We forget that he was on the hot seat going into the national championship year. When that team faltered last year, so many LSU guys I worked with said, don't worry about it. Great recruiting class, which is true. I think they had the third best recruiting class coming in. So great recruiting, fine. But there is going to be a real conversation about, was it Coach O or was it the combination of Brady and Burrow, the passing game quarterback combo? Was it that passing game quarterback combo that really won them a national championship? If LSU struggles this year, Coach O could find himself out of a job. So I think there's a ton of pressure on him to rally the troops. But, man, you've got distraction after distraction, rightfully so, with LSU. And you've got a UCLA team that absolutely is able to come in. They come in a little bit more buttoned up, coming with one game under the belt. So I think UCLA makes it close. But, man, LSU, if they're not playing with desperation, Coach O is going to lose his job.
All right, Jason, one more before I let you go. Always enjoy talking with you. Again, Spain and Fitz tonight, 7 p.m. right here on 97.3 ESPN. I know you and Sarah talked about some movies earlier this week on the show. And I got to tell you, I'm a huge Marvel fan. I am one of the biggest geeks on planet Earth, okay? But I'm a little concerned because the two best movies I've seen in 2021 are The Protege and Cruella. And, I don't want to get my hopes up too high for Shang-Chi this weekend, but there's a part of me that's like, I've seen two great movies this year already, and I'm a little worried that Shang-Chi might not hit the peak that I want it to.
Yeah, I'm with you on that 1,000%. By the way, Cruella, sneaky good. Like, I was stunned but like I went in expecting it to be okay. It's not okay. It is great. And I've watched it twice now. So that tells you how good it is. I'm all in on that. I'm not sure anything's going to live up to that. And by the way, you guys know, everybody knows I'm a horror movie fanatic. So this is just the beginning of anxiety because I really don't know what to think about another Michael Myers movie. Like I'm all in on the Halloween franchise. It's life for me. Plus there's a Scream 5 coming out in January now. So like, I'm just getting ready for a whole fall of disappointment. Hopefully Marvel can live up to the expectations they always do. But I'm jaded right now. I'm guarded through the entirety of the fall and not knowing what to expect.
Jay, I'm a huge Marvel fan. I got to tell you, the Protege and Cruella are both better than Black Widow. I'm sorry. I have to admit it. And by the way, you mentioned Cruella sneaky good. I went to see Protege. I was on the edge of my seat. I'm like losing my mind. I'm like, this is amazing. I mean, the interaction between Maggie Q and Michael Keaton is just absolute fire in the movie. So it's like, I'm like, oh man, I got two movies here that are better than the Marvel movie. What am I going to do?
Yeah, well, we all need the Marvel. Like as a Disney employee, I sure need the Marvel movies to continue to be epic. So, Golick Jr. tells me that I'm too jaded on all of it, and it's going to be spectacular. So, I'll trust him on this one, but, we can only go down that. If it hurts, then he'll be the first to hear it from me on it.
At Jason Fitz on Twitter. Again, catch him, Spain and Fitz, tonight at 7 p.m. on 97.3 ESPN. Jason, always good to chat with you. Don't worry, Mike Gill will be back next week. You guys can go back and forth through your shirts. All I got is The Rock today. That's all I got going.
Look, I'm all in on The Rock. That's your job. I'm going to a meet and greet this weekend to meet one of the Midnight Rockers, one of the Rockers. Like I'm standing in line to hang out with Marty Jannetty, so you can bring Rock all day long. That's good.
All right, Jay, good to chat with you. Take care of yourself.
Brother. Thanks.
Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Filling in for Mike Gill. Sports Bash being brought to you by JCPenney. It's a Labor Day sale, and the deals are coming in hot. Get instant savings on furniture, mattresses, along with window and shop doorbusters all day long. Friday to Monday, while they last at JCPenney. By the way, forgive me. I've been convinced. I've read this script twice now, and I just realized now that this script was not written very well. So whoever gave me this read, because I think what it's supposed to say, all right, get instant savings on furniture, mattresses, and more. Shop doorbusters all day, Friday to Monday, while they last at JCPenney. I think that's what it's supposed to say, but they didn't write that. So, by the way, message coming in about the conversation about the movies. Elliot agrees with me. Protege was phenomenal. Protege was incredible. And Elliot's right. The ending scene is epic. Like, you want your thriller. You want your movie that's shaded in mystery and intrigue to end that way. That's what you want. And by the way, they set it up so, like, your imagination runs wild. Like, are they going to come up with a second movie? Are they not going to come up with a second movie? Is this a one-off? Is this not a one-off? I'm telling you, I mean, that movie was great. And Jay's right. Cruella was sneaky underrated. Sneaky underrated was that movie. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. So, by the way, a quick change to the schedule. So, a bad job by me. I completely have been all over the place this week. And so, Weinberg Wednesday, we're going to have it coming up next. Dave Weinberg, very kind to join us while he's down in Myrtle Beach. Okay. So we're going to chat with Dave on the other side about some football stuff and about some baseball stuff because, every Wednesday here on 97.3 ESPN, I'm the host of Game Night. Dave usually joins me around 6:15, 6:20 at night, but he's going to join us 3 hours earlier today to talk some Eagles, talk some baseball, and get his perspective on a few different things. So he'll be checking in live from South Carolina. So always good to chat with Dave coming up. By the way, another message coming in about the movies. Message says, Eternals are going to be epic, Josh. Here's the thing. I slightly kid when I say I'm a little worried about Shang-Chi and the other Marvel movies because I think that Shang-Chi and the Eternals both have a chance to be two of the best movies of Phase 4, honestly. I think for anyone who loves, just movies that have epic movie scores, great actors and actresses, and can appreciate films like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or stuff like that. Eternals is going to be your Marvel movie. Like, I think it's going to be incredible. The director's a Grammy Award winner. You got Angelina Jolie, Selma Hayek in it, Kit Harington. The cast is absolutely nuts. So you're right, it's going to be epic. But I think this Shang-Chi movie, and I'm hoping for the best, but I think Shang-Chi is going to blow people away. I don't think people realize what this is going to be and how important it is for the Marvel Cinematic Universe moving forward. All right, enough about the movies. I can go about movies for the next 2 hours, but we got to get back to the sports. Dave Weinberg joins us next for a Weinberg Wednesday. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill here on 97.3 ESPN.
The Touchdown Radio Network season begins with a Thursday night Big Ten battle as the fourth-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes visit the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Head coach P.J. Fleck enters season number 5 with the Gophers as they look to rebound from a disappointing 3-4 record last year. Even with a new quarterback, the Ohio State Buckeyes are again eyeing a Big Ten championship and a college football playoff berth. The Ohio State Buckeyes and Minnesota Golden Gophers, 8 p.m. Eastern this Thursday.
On 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's football station.
Hi, I'm Dan Tracy. I'm a workers' compensation attorney. At Goldenberg Mackler, we've handled thousands of workers' compensation claims over the years. Our experienced attorneys understand the law and will fight to get you the benefits that you deserve. When injured at work, make the right call to Goldenberg Mackler. Call us at 609-344-7131. That's 609-344-7131. Or visit us online at gmslaw.com.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Don't forget the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks First Bank Seattle City. Keep all the messages coming in here on the Bash. We'll get to all your thoughts a little bit later this hour about Ben Simmons, Sixers, Eagles, and more. But he was kind enough to join us while he's down in Myrtle Beach, 3 hours earlier than he usually joins us, that being Dave Weinberg. It's a Weinberg Wednesday here on 97.3 ESPN, and Dave joins us right now. Dave, I don't know what to thank you more for, coming on last minute after I completely botched my entire day, or the fact that you're chiming in from Myrtle Beach of all places.
Yeah, Josh, I'm fortunate enough to be playing in the World Amateur Golf Tournament down here. Something I've always wanted to do. It was kind of on my bucket list, and the opportunity presented itself this year. So I said, what the heck? And so I'm down here playing 4 rounds of golf at great golf courses and having a great time.
You know, how do you get involved in something like that? Before we get to anything else, I'm curious. Like, I'm not the golf guru that you are, so I got to know, like, how does this work? Like, how does someone get involved in doing something like this?
You sign up. Basically,
okay.
it's probably like the 30th year of the tournament, I think. But the great thing about it is you're paired with people who are your same level and your same age. Like, I'm in the 60 to 69 age group, and we all have the same handicap, give or take a couple of tenths of a point. So, but there's guys who are scratch golfers. There's guys who are 30 handicaps that can't break 110, but they're playing against other guys who also can't break 110. So it's more about the, just camaraderie, having fun, trying to do your best. I'm basically competing against myself. I really have no illusions of winning my flight. There's like 50 golfers in my flight. Tied for like 14th at the moment, but I'm having a great time and I'm really enjoying it.
Well, listen, if you're top 15 in your way, it's called a flight, you said, I mean, that's gotta be some sort of, badge of respectability. It's like, hey man, there were 50 dudes and I was like 14th. That's pretty cool.
Oh, thanks, Josh. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's I basically just wanted to prove to myself that I can hang with people like this. I was a little nervous at first, but that quickly went away as soon as I found out that, these guys are all in the same playing ability that I am, and we're all pretty much, in mid 80s, low 90s, something like that. So it's, I'm really enjoying myself. It's a lot of fun.
Well, that's very cool. So, I'm glad it worked out that you had finished your round and now you can chat with us, because I got to ask you, Dave, the Eagles, they got down to the first 53 and everyone that they cut and waived, nobody was claimed. So I got to ask you, what's more surprising, the fact that they cut Fulgham or the fact that nobody wanted Travis Fulgham?
That's really surprising to me, Josh, considering, he did kind of fade in training camp and, didn't have a great preseason. But for about a month span there last year, he was the NFL's most productive receiver. So I'm kind of surprised that no one would take a flyer on him, maybe be able to light a fire under the kid and recreate what he did last season for that month. That's the most surprising part of it to me, that nobody picked him up.
Yeah, I know a lot of Eagle fans are still scratching their head even now about the fact that J-Jaw made the team over Fulgham. But, listen, I don't agree with it per se, Dave, but the Eagles have been very clear that they value special teams more than other teams do.
Right.
And J-Jaw is playing he plays a lot of special teams. In one preseason game, he had a special teams tackle and he caught a touchdown. So it was like they obviously see some value there. So I know Eagle fans are like, J-Jaw stinks, but I'm like, yeah, but the Eagles don't care what you think because they need him to go out there and play special teams.
Right, and that goes back to, like, say, when John Harbaugh was the special teams coach under Andy Reid. They've always placed a very high priority on that. And you're right, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, he's a great special teams player. So that gives him an edge over some of the other guys that were on the bubble, the John Hightowers and the Travis Fulghams. I kind of thought they would keep both of those guys, but for whatever reason, they only kept one. And if you're going to keep one, you keep the guy who can do more, and that's J-Jaw.
Also, when you look at the Eagles, obviously they finally admitted things yesterday. They finally said that Hurts is the starting quarterback. They finally said that Mailata's left tackle. But they also came out and overtly said, look, Flacco's the 2, Minshew is the 3, which I'm so glad they finally said, Dave, because the conspiracy theories over the weekend were just getting so out of hand when it came to Minshew. And I'm just like, don't you guys realize, and even Howie said it in the press conference, he made fun of himself. He was like, oh, well, quarterback factory, ha, 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 But at the end of the day, listen, if Hurts goes down, who's backing up Flacco? Greg Ward?
Right. To be honest with you, though, I was surprised that Minshew would want to come here. I mean, it was pretty clear that he thought that he was actually competing with Trevor Lawrence for the starting job, which is ludicrous. But he's never been content or never been satisfied with being a backup. And I'm kind of wondering, how this is going to affect the quarterback room, because Gardner's got that reputation of being a very, I don't want to say, he's a competitive guy, and I don't know that he's going to take being the number 3 guy very lightly. And I would think he'd want a culture that's a little more cohesive, a little more, the chemistry would be a little better. And I'm not quite sure how he's going to fit in with Hurts and Flacco. And I don't understand why you would do that to Hurts. It seems like they're never satisfied with the kid, that they always want to put some kind of pressure on him to create those conspiracy theories that you talked about. And I don't quite get it. Just let the kid play and see what he can do.
It also gets back to, and I'm not saying I hate this, but it does concern me, Dave, that every time the Eagles bring in a new person in the front office or an advisor, now it's Dave Caldwell, who drafted Minshew down in Jacksonville, John Dorsey before that, Joe Douglas with all those former Ravens and Bears players.
Right.
Andy Weidel is here now. And when Andrew Berry was here, they were talking about Colts players that he was in Indianapolis with. Why is it that every person who comes into this building gets Howie's ear and he just says yes to them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess they have a kind of an insider's view of some of these players, and I guess they kind of convince Howie that these guys are worth taking a chance on. But I just don't get it. There were other needs on this team besides third-string quarterback. I know that could be a very important position, especially with COVID. Kind of an unpredictable phase right now. You don't know who's going to test positive, who's going to be sidelined. So you need 3 quarterbacks. But I don't know. I guess they just felt comfortable with Minshew and wanted to bring him in, but I don't agree with it, honestly. Excuse me.
Dave Weinberg joining us for a Weinberg Wednesday, 3 hours earlier than usual here on 97.3 ESPN as he's live from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, a place that I would love to go back to one of these days. It's a very underrated part of the country, in my opinion, that part of South Carolina, but that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool place. It is. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not saying that, it's the greatest place in the world, but I'm just saying, I got to go down there a couple times because I was ended up in Charlotte, North Carolina. There's a golf course right in Charlotte. That's a pretty, I think it's part of some sort of circuit of golf course. I forget exactly, but
okay.
I remember being down there, and then we drove across into South Carolina into Myrtle Beach, and I was just like, all right, this is a pretty cool situation. But anyway, enough about my past vacation experiences.
Well, I do have a quick story to tell
go
you.
ahead.
The first time we went to Myrtle Beach with my wife, there's this movie called The Shag. It's like a dance movie that goes back from the 1950s, like a dance contest, and it takes place in the Grand Strand. So we are coming down there. We're driving down this highway, and there's a Waffle House, and then there's a Dunkin' Donuts, and there's another Waffle House. We finally pull over, and my wife asked the gas station attendants, "Where's the Grand Strand?" And the lady goes, "Lady, you're driving on it." It's just like the strip of highway with just a bunch of motels and Waffle Houses on it now. She thought it was going to be this big kind of convention center. It was really funny.
That is funny. That's good. Your stories are better than mine. We also know that. But Dave, the other thing I noticed is, and I don't know if we should give the Eagles credit or if we should, kind of shake our heads at them. But everyone that they cut and waived, almost everyone's on the practice squad. None of them are anywhere else. Like literally, I look at the practice squad right now. Graylin Arlen, LaRaven Clark, Fulgham, Hightower, Jordan Howard, Huntley, Jaquette, Craig James, Matt Leo, Sua Peta, Elijah Riley, Jacoby Stevens, Raekwon Williams, and more. They were just cut yesterday. So it's like, did the Eagles just outsmart the league and say, we're only going to cut guys that nobody wants?
That's an interesting theory. Well, the other side would be that they cut guys who nobody wants because they're not any good. I don't know. I'm kind of surprised that Jordan Howard didn't get picked up by anybody. He's got a different kind of type of running back, more physical, not as quite as versatile as some guy teams would like, but he's had some pretty good seasons, and so I was kind of surprised that nobody took a chance on him. But yeah, I guess when you're making these decisions, you want to go with guys that you think you're going to be able to bring back. So I guess they knew what they were doing, although it's a kind of a knock on their talent evaluating, I guess, that nobody else wanted them.
It's just so strange to me, Dave. Like I don't, with this organization, it's like on one hand you want to give them credit for something, on the other hand it just makes you shake your head because you're like, what's going on here? Like I don't even know what some of this stuff means. Like Jordan Howard, I thought he was going to have a major role in this team.
Yeah, me
now
too.
He's sitting on the practice squad, and yeah, you can call him up on game day because those rules are still in effect, but it's just so strange.
Yeah, I agree with you there. There are guys that you think would be able to contribute, would have like kind of a key role in the team, and you're right. The Eagles don't see it that way, but I guess they know what they're doing. I mean, they know more about it than I do, I guess. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, there were a couple guys, that Jordan Howard being the key guy, that I thought would be in uniform on Sundays, and maybe he still will be, like you said. But I was kind of surprised that they let him go.
Dave, I want to switch over to a little bit bigger sports, macro topic, and that is obviously in the news lately has been the whole fiasco with the Mets. The Mets, the players giving the fans a thumbs down, fans complaining, them having to have this, pathetic apology put out there. And in the same week, Bryce Harper's like, I love the Philly fans. I love how angry they are. How he embraces it, how he wouldn't want to play anywhere else. But on the same week, you have a guy like Joel Embiid saying, hey, the fans, they motivate me. They make me want to be better. But then he says the Philly fans have to be better. And I'm just like, what is going on with these people over concern with the fans? Last time I remembered, when I was younger, it was like the players just went out there and played. They didn't worry about the fans too much. Now all of a sudden, all these players have something to say about the fans and their reactions.
Yeah, I don't. I guess they expect the fans to be supporting them regardless, through thick and thin. But it doesn't work that way in a lot of cities, Philadelphia being one of them. If you're not producing, if you're not succeeding, they're going to let you know. I mean, you've seen them boo the team and boo the Eagles at halftime off the field after they've stunk it up for 2 quarters. They love the team, but they demand excellence and they demand success. And if they're not getting it, they're going to let you know about it. But you're right. You can't have thin skin. You can't be sensitive to that kind of stuff if you want to play in Philadelphia. You can go to maybe some other cities that are not as quite as passionate, but Philadelphia is one of those ones. Boston being one, New York being one, that you really have to know what you're getting into when you go to those teams, and you can't, like I said, you can't let that get to you. You can't complain. The worst thing to do is to complain about it, to let put thumbs down or fans have to be better. No, they don't. They're paying their money. They can do whatever they want, within reason. Booing being one of them, and that's just the way it is. And you got to accept it or go play somewhere else where they don't care.
Yeah, and listen, if you want to go play somewhere like, I don't know, somewhere like Atlanta where the fans are fair weather, or somewhere like Minnesota where the fans don't even show up for half the sports out there unless it's Vikings football. The other sports don't seem to care. Go there. I don't understand this need of these players to clap back or whatever the kids call it now at the fans.
You're just feeding into it by putting it on Twitter or Instagram or social media, what have you. you just have to accept it and recognize that that's what they're going to do. And it's no, and if you go 4 for 4 tomorrow, they're going to love you again. If you throw 2 touchdown passes tomorrow, they're going to love you again. If you score 30 in an NBA game, they're going to love you again. So you just got to take it with a grain of salt. It's a day-by-day thing with those guys.
Dave, one more before I let you go. Dave Weinberg joining us for a Weinberg Wednesday here on 97.3 ESPN at Dave Weinberg 19 on Twitter. Dave, Wildwood Catholic, last week they were moving on from coaches, and now it's Anthony Raffa. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I should feel old or not, because I remember playing at 42nd Street basketball court street ball with Anthony Raffa when I was younger in Sea Isle, when I used to live in Sea Isle. So I feel like, man, what a small world. I mean, I was playing with this guy who's a couple years younger than me down at the courts in Sea Isle, and now he's coaching Wildwood Catholic. Like, what a full circle world. Yeah, like we've talked about this in the past. It's kind of like a changing of the guard, so to speak. You know, you have like Tom Farraco and Dave DeWeese are stepping down. You're going to have younger guys, taking over for them. Paul Baruffi at Ocean City Girls, probably the same thing. He just stepped down as well. And yeah, I mean, that's just it's a circle of life when it comes to basketball or coaching. It's just guys feel like they put their time in. It's time to do something else or what have you, relax a little bit. And then the next generation comes up to take over. And Anthony being one of them. He's a great guy. He was a tremendous player at Wildwood Catholic and in Coastal Carolina and Myrtle Beach, as a matter of fact. And had some great success over in Europe as well. And now he's coming into the coaching ranks. He was one of Dave's assistants last year. So he's very familiar with it, having played for Wildwood Catholic too. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does. Yeah, I'm excited for him. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm serious thinking, man, like I just remember when Anthony was like 12 years old, and I'm playing, with him street ball at the basketball courts on 42nd Street and JFK. That those basketball courts are right on the boulevard in Sea Isle. I'm just like, man, that was all those years ago, and man, I'm getting up there. I must be getting older. I'm entering that territory where like people that I went to school with or I was around when I was younger are now doing things too. It's a little surreal for me. That's all. Well, when you get to be my age, like my wife just retired from teaching a couple of years ago, but she was teaching like the kids of parents that she taught years before that. So, that's when you know that you really been around the block a couple times, I guess. I mean, you're younger than both of my children, so how old does that make me now? Well, I'm at least I'm not too young. At least I'm 36 years old. It's not like I'm like 25 or something. Same age as my son, then. Okay, all right. Okay. Not too bad then. Okay. Yeah, I like to say I'm mid 30s because apparently every time I run into somebody thinks I'm in my early to mid 20s, and I'm like, hey man, that's God bless genetics. That's not actually my age though. Dave Weinberg joins us live from Myrtle Beach here for a Weinberg Wednesday. Give him a follow on Twitter at Dave Weinberg 19. Also, guys, extra point columns at 973 ESPN.com. And of course, the podcast, Tequila and Touchdowns with Dave Weinberg. Dave, I appreciate you jumping on last minute, making this worth it. I always enjoy talking to you. Anytime, Josh. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash, filling in for Mike Gill here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. Don't forget my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. College football is back, and FanDuel is making week 1 even more exciting because right now, all customers get a risk-free bet on any week 1 game. That's right. Place any week 1 college football bet and get a refund in site credit if you don't win. Offers like this are just one of the many reasons I love betting college football on FanDuel Sportsbook. They're the number 1 rated sportsbook app in America because FanDuel is easy to use, safe, and secure with fast payouts. New to FanDuel Sportsbook? Sign up with promo code Hennig to also get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's promo code Hennig when you sign up, a new user with FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or to play and present in New Jersey. Refund issued is non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $10 unless otherwise indicated. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, I got a ton of messages to get to that have been coming in throughout the show that I didn't get to earlier this hour. We will get to all of your messages next. And don't forget, still to come, Football at 4 with Jeff Mosher, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Paul Hudrick from Liberty Ballers, former 97.3 ESPN Sixers insider, joins us at 4:40. And Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports NFL writer, at 5:25. But next, your messages right here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig, filling for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN.
We never stop talking Eagles and NFL. It's football at 4. Every day at 4 p.m. on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
First Bank of Sea Isle is Cape May County's lending expert, standing strong with you at First Bank of Sea Isle. Find out how First Bank of Sea Isle can simplify your banking needs. Your partner since 1888. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You can watch the Sports Bash live now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 97.3 ESPN or visit our website, 97.3ESPN.com.
All right, finishing up the 3 o'clock hour. Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Don't forget the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. We got a bunch of messages to get to. Don't forget you can download the app for 3 message the show through 97.3 ESPN mobile app as you consume the show on a multitude of platforms, whether it's on your radio or whether it's on the app on your phone or on the website, 97.3ESPN.com. Obviously, there's a plethora of ways for you to check out the show. We appreciate you chiming in on all those platforms. I got a ton of messages to get to, so I'm going to try to rapid fire some of these messages. Hal chimes in from Delaware and says, do you think Cam Newton's career is over now that the Patriots cut him? Hal, I don't know if his career is over, but I think that Cam Newton has got a lot of self-evaluating to do because his former coach, Ron Rivera, doesn't want him. He basically lost the starting job to Mac Jones with the Patriots. The Cowboys chose Will Grier to be on their roster through the waiver wire over Cam Newton because they could have signed him in free agency. I don't know if his career is over, but I think Cam needs to reinvent himself if he wants to keep playing in the NFL. Either that or he needs to go to the CFL because I think Cam's days of being a surefire starter are done. I think Cam needs to do what guys like, RG3 did when he became a backup in Baltimore, or what some of these other guys whose careers kind of fizzle out at certain points. I think he needs to accept that his best days are behind him. And even though he may still have, gas in the tank, while he still may have bullets in the holster, I don't know if anybody believes it. It seems like Cam, his best days are behind him. I think Cam, if he wanted to be a backup somewhere, he could still latch on with somebody. But it seems like for better or for worse, he's just at a point in his career where he's just not the guy anymore. Right? So, I think he just has to accept that, for better or for worse. Also over in the 973 ESPN mobile app, Calvin from Wildwood chimed in earlier, says, why is it everyone saying all these quarterbacks are going to win Rookie of the Year, but they forget who beat them for the Heisman Trophy? Talking about the rookie quarterbacks who are starting around the NFL. Listen, man, you have a good point. Devonta Smith won the Rookie of the Year award. Sorry, he won the Heisman Trophy, not Trevor Lawrence. It wasn't Mac Jones. It wasn't Zach Wilson. I think it's an excellent point. And you know what? I double check what the odds are for NFL Rookie of the Year. But I got to think that, if you genuinely believe that Devonta Smith can win that award, you might have some good odds on that. I'll pull it up on FanDuel Sportsbook. I'll try to get it for the end of this segment, but I don't. I promise you, Calvin from Wildwood, I'll get it to you in the next hour because it's a great point you bring up. Everyone loves quarterbacks. Everyone obsesses over quarterbacks. But at the end of the day, the quarterback doesn't always win these awards. Sometimes these awards are individual awards. Here it is. I'm looking for Devonta Smith here right now. Devonta Smith is plus 2,000 to win. Your favorite right now is Trevor Lawrence, plus 400. Mac Jones, plus 450. Justin Fields, plus 650. Trey Lance, plus... Is Trey Lance even going to play this year? I mean, he's not even going to start the year healthy because of that chip on his finger. Zach Wilson, plus 700. Najee Harris, plus 900 is the first non-quarterback. So, listen, Calvin and Wildwood, if you think that Devonta Smith should give you more of a favorite, plus 2,000 is crazy odds, just to let you know, on over there on FanDuel Sportsbook. We talked about movies a little bit earlier as well. Void Shot X Gaming says you forgot about Top Gun 2. No, I didn't forget about Top Gun 2. I just don't care about Top Gun 2. You're having a movie sequel that's almost 25 years after the original. Like, I don't know what's going to be more questionable, this movie or Matrix 4. So I'm not getting excited about Top Gun 2. Sorry, I can't ride with you on that one. Over on the text board, Dan from Tuckerton says, I think a lot of the casual Marvel fans are going to be confused by the movie Eternals when it comes out in November. Well, listen, man, that's why people like me exist. If you follow me on Twitter at Josh Hennig, I go off and I explain a lot of those Marvel movies and DC shows, Dan from Tuckerton. So follow me at Josh Hennig on Twitter, and I got you covered. I'll explain it for all the casual Marvel fans, even for, the diehards. I got some information for you over there as well. So listen, anybody who knows me knows I love sports. I love going to the gym, and I love my movies, and I love my Marvel movies. So, if you rock with me on any of those topics, follow me on Twitter at Josh. I got you covered there. By the way, One more message to get to. JD from Brigantine, please resend your text because I have zero idea what you were trying to say on the text board. So JD and Brigantine, follow up with me. I have no idea what you're trying to say. Jeff Mosher, Football at 4, next.
a town square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN, home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
He is hit. He stumbles. He's down.
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. 97.3 ESPN presents the Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Jeff Mosher.
My personality is I want to win badly. I want to win more Lombardis for Philadelphia and our fans. We got the greatest fans around, and I will do everything possible.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. As the Eagles roster has evolved, but how much credit should we give the Eagles for how the roster has evolved? Plus, you have Zach Ertz speaking to the media. All that and more we'll get into with Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast right here on 97.3 ESPN. Jeff, how are you doing on the first day of September? Jeff, it looks like your mic is muted over there. I can't control that.
How about that now?
I can hear you now. It's like a commercial.
Well, that's wonderful. That's how my first day of September is going, Josh, to answer your question.
By the way, it's not your fault. I've noticed that sometimes people leave the mic muted on their side, just like by habit, because you don't want to have a live mic on a stream call. So right. I can't blame you for that at all. That's actually very responsible of you.
Yeah, some people are best left muted, a wise man once said. Maybe I'm one of those people.
I don't know about that, but I do remember, totally off topic, I remember there being a Zoom call last year with the Sixers, and there was some person rambling in the background during the entire Zoom call. Like halfway through, he finally muted his microphone. Like it was hilarious. So,
like I said, some people best left muted.
So, Jeff, I always want to follow up with you before we get to the Zach Ertz stuff and everything else. The Eagles, I find very interesting. They cut all these guys. They waived all these guys. And, Jeff, they're all back. They're all on the practice squad. So, are the Eagles geniuses, or does just nobody want their players?
I certainly don't think they're geniuses for this. I think they're smart in realizing that, based on what you said, that there was not going to be a very popular demand for some of their players. Sua Opeta, I thought, might have some demand being an offensive lineman, but they waived two wide receivers. We talked about Travis Fulgham and Hightower. I think on Monday I told you those guys were squarely on the bubble, especially Fulgham, and in jeopardy of not making the team. They didn't. And so, I mean, you need like a very big abacus to count the number of wide receivers that get cut by teams at the cutdown deadline. There's 100 of them. So it's not like everybody's dying to claim wide receivers, right? Same thing with some of the other players that the Eagles, no one jumped out at me as a guy that I really thought I thought Fulgham might get claimed. Okay. I did think Fulgham might, only because sometimes there's a GM or a head coach who looks and says, man, I can be the one that can reach that guy to turn him into what he did last year for 4 weeks. All right. Sometimes, but in this case, it was not to be. And obviously running backs aren't usually in high demand on the waiver wire. Usually teams are trying to get rid of and then add at other areas. Cornerbacks, we've seen Michael Jacquet. He needs a lot of work and development, so you're not going to waive him. You're not going to remember, you claim one of these guys, you have to put him on your 53-man roster, which means you may have to play them in a game. So, no, none of the guys that got cut that I think were really in jeopardy of landing elsewhere. And even in an offensive line deficient league, to be able to get LaRaven Clark back, I thought was a pretty good job for them.
Yeah, I'm just shocked they got all these guys back. Like this, I don't. If I double check, I've looked at the practice squad list 3 times now. I don't see a player from another team. Am I missing something? Like, did they literally just like, well, we already had all these guys, just stick them on the practice squad?
Yeah, I mean, look, I guess what's surprising to me is that the defensive tackle position is not a position that they felt that they have Raekwon Williams re-signed to the practice squad. I can't say I thought he had the greatest preseason. I can't say anybody who's mainly a run stuffer on defense had a heck of a preseason for the Eagles, because their run defensive numbers were almost astronomically bad. It's preseason, but it was still pretty bad. So I thought maybe they would look on the waiver wire to claim a defensive tackle that had been released. But I looked and saw the list of all of the waiver claims, and I think only one of the 30 or so claims, or less than that, but one of the claims was a defensive tackle. So maybe it wasn't a great defensive tackle market to claim guys from.
I'm very curious to see what happens. And of course, obviously the other big news today, aside from the practice squad being announced, is the aftermath of 53-man roster. Jeff, you and Adam talked about in your instant reaction on ITB TV. That's a lot of linebackers. I mean, I was assuming you might go like 5 safeties, because I thought that, to me, Adams and Riley were like duplicitous. I thought they were kind of 2 of the same guy. They went 7 linebackers and 4 safeties and basically 5 corners. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen an Eagles team with 7 linebackers before.
Right. I suspected that they were going to keep an extra linebacker than they ordinarily would, because Davion Taylor is still hurt, and I don't think he practiced today even still. So he's really going through it. So with that, you knew you had your top 3 of Alex Singleton, Eric Wilson, and TJ Edwards. And then you know that they're kind of experimenting with this kind of Sam position, strong side linebacker, with Jannard Avery there and Patrick Johnson. So, I thought that they would keep like 3, 4, like 6 right there. I didn't think that they were going to go 7, but Sean Bradley makes it. But I will say this. The initial 53 looks a lot different from the 53 usually the next day. In this case, it doesn't. It's still the same, but they're going to put Tyree Jackson, I would think, on IR, if they have not yet announced that already. I imagine he will go on IR. That's going to clear a spot. And there's what a lot of teams do, Josh, is wait for today to start maybe releasing players instead of yesterday. So what you're trying to do is take advantage of teams that have already kind of put their 53 and their practice squad together, and they're not as jumpy on the waiver wire. So maybe they cut someone like Patrick Johnson, a good rookie who probably isn't ready to play, try to sneak him through the waiver process and get him back on your practice squad. And then you open up a spot on your practice squad to do something at a different position, because they're pretty light at other positions right now. But also, not to be long-winded, you can be light because the rules from last year on the practice squads, I believe, still apply. You can have 2 guys come and play for the regular. So you look at like Craig James or LaRaven Clark or even Travis Fulgham, right? Or I'm trying to think of who else might qualify for that. Possibly Huntley if they have, or no, Jordan Howard. Perfect example.
Jordan Howard, yeah.
Jordan Howard is a guy that I think you get to do it 2 or 3 times, if I remember, where you can activate somebody from the practice squad, play him, and then put him back on the practice squad. So they may very well. This is like the new version of what you used to do when you released a guy, a vested vet, and then re-signed him after week 1 to a less guaranteed money. Right now, you just tell Jordan Howard, look, give us 3 weeks. We're going to activate you, week 1, week 2 from the practice squad. Then when we run out, we re-sign you to a contract for the rest of the year.
Jeff Mosher joining us, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com. The next edition of the pod will drop tomorrow morning with Jeff and Adam. Today was Q&A with Jason Avant and Quentin Michael talking about the Eagles roster over on the Inside the Birds podcast platform. Jeff, let's get into some of the things that happened since all of this went down. Zach Ertz spoke with the media, as you mentioned on Twitter, basically the first time in forever, what it seems like at this point. And he made some very interesting concessions. He was very honest about things, and I thought it was refreshing to hear what he said, that he had the opportunity to kind of clear the air on some things.
Well, refreshing, yes, because you finally heard from him. I'm still sitting here trying to do the math and 2 + 2 on this kind of strange soap opera. I mean, this really is a soap opera if you consider the plot twist here. He says nothing all preseason long, off season long, right? Then the 53-man comes out. He's still on the team. And now he's going to talk. And when he talks, he really, and I'm not ripping Zach Ertz, I'm just giving you how it perceived it. He gushed about the organization, the new coaching staff, the newness, wanting to be an Eagle, loving it here, loving the city. I mean, that's a stark contrast to the last time he spoke, which was at the end of last year when he was kind of tearful and uncertain about his future. And than all of the reports in the offseason. And certainly the reports were true. The team would definitely trade him, just did not get the offer that Howie Roseman thinks is fair. Even Zach said that in his press conference today. He said, look, they're standing firm on what they believe is value, and I have to accept and respect that. So to me, that leaves a lot of questions still, right? I mean, the question I have is, now that he's kind of professed his love for the team and the organization and wanting to be here, Josh, I would ask, well, does that mean he told the team he now no longer wants to be traded? B, I would say, does this mean the organization now has told him that they will not trade him no matter what? Okay, because remember, he said he wants to be here for the rest of his career. And C, how do the coaches feel about this kind of juxtaposition of having Zach Ertz on the roster when really they came in probably expecting that Dallas Goedert was going to be their number one tight end, the guy they want to feature as the tight end? Do they want to play as much 12 personnel? Because as we saw last year with Alshon Jeffrey still on the roster and still making money, even though it wasn't a great fit, they shoehorned him onto the field. So Zach Ertz is going to play if he's on the field. So does this mean more 12 personnel than 11 personnel? It just, to me, opens up a lot of questions that were not answered in that press conference.
One thing that stood out to me also about what Zach Ertz said was he talked about he didn't want to, the reason why he was quiet during the offseason was he didn't want to, burn down the city, quote unquote. He was trying to, just be quiet because he loves the city of Philadelphia. And I think he doesn't really answer the question, though, because you can love Philadelphia, but be unhappy with the team in Philadelphia. Like, how many times have we heard about athletes leaving a team, unhappy with the team? Like Aaron Rodgers says, I love Green Bay. He doesn't like Brian Gutekunst, right? Like there's numerous examples. So it's like Zach used that as a way to sideswipe the question and be like, I'm not going to answer that because I love Philadelphia. It's like, Zach, we get it. But what about the Eagles?
Right. He was directly asked by Jeff McLean if he felt that the organization has been honest with him from the start about his status going back to last year. And he did not say yes. He did not say no. He said it's a moot point. And then he went on to talk about why he didn't make a big stink publicly himself. And I couldn't help, Josh, and you're bringing this up, right? At perfect time. I couldn't help, as he's saying these things, but think about what the chatter is today in Philadelphia about Ben Simmons and turning his back on city, and Joel kind of calling out the Phillies fans. And of course, up in New York with Javi Baez and them calling out the Mets fans, and how the fans get thrown under the bus. And I don't know if it was strategical by Zach, but to have that statement today that it's not about Philly, it's the best place to play, it's the best fans, he has a love for here, certainly makes him look a lot more mature and a lot more understanding of the culture here than some of the other athletes who have been here and in other passionate cities like New York. So I don't know if that was Zach's plan, like, I'm going to capitalize on an anti-Ben Simmons movement going on and show the Philadelphians how much I love them, but it certainly coincides right at the perfect time because that's where the chatter is in sports talk today.
Oh, it is. I was saying earlier, Jeff, listen, the Phillies have won 5 straight games. They're creeping up the division. Nobody cares.
I know. I hate that, but yeah.
The only thing I have seen online doing the show for Mike Gill all week, getting responses all over the place from the listeners, all everyone talk about is Eagles, Ben Simmons. They don't care about the Phillies. They don't care about the Flyers. They don't care about Penn State football. They care about 2 things, and that's it.
Well, I can tell you, I care about the Phillies and I care about Penn State football. You know that. And I would be happy if I were in your seat right now to entertain those topics. And if it meant nobody reacted to me or talked to me, I'd probably do it anyway.
I mean, I did talk about the Phillies a little bit earlier, but it was like at some point, it's just this overwhelming response about the Eagles and Ben Simmons. And maybe there is some of the fact that Zach Ertz is positioning himself as the different guy in the room. By the way, Bryce Harper did the same thing this week. Bryce Harper talked about how much, loves Philadelphia. He won't want to play anywhere else. It's like you have on one hand, you got Ertz and Harper. On the other hand, you have everybody else.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I think Zach has always handled it fairly well since, earlier in his career when he would get kind of chastised for not being physical enough. But he, for the last 5-6 years, he's done a lot for the city, by the way, from a charitable standpoint. His Ertz Family Foundation, they're doing some great things in North Philadelphia. as we speak. I mean, he's been doing it for a while with Julie, his wife. He talked about that in his press conference. He truly genuinely loves this area. I know that. And a lot of people do. I mean, how many Eagles, will during their career rail about the pressure and the fishbowl, and then they all live in our neighborhood here. They're all over South Jersey and the Philly burbs. They settle and stay here because at the end of the day, once the microscope off them, they love Philadelphia sports. They love the passion, and they like living in this kind of an area.
Jeff, I also want to ask you about another guy who spoke to me, not specifically about what he said, because, well, we can do an entire podcast about Gardner Minshew at this point. I mean, that guy is just an interesting character, to say the least. But I find it interesting that the Eagles made him available to talk the day after Howie and Sirianni came out and said, this is the number 3 quarterback. Jalen Hurts is the starter. This is what Minshew's job is. It seems almost like the Eagles came out yesterday, wanted to clarify, here's everybody's roles, and now you can talk to these guys.
Absolutely. If you don't think there's anything strategic about both Zach Ertz not speaking until today, and then, of course, Gardner Minshew until after Howie and Nick talk, yeah, that goes on. It's planned. It's strategic. And I thought that Gardner Minshew handled it very well. He understands his role here. He seems happy to be here. I think he, without really knowing, but I think he sees the bigger picture here about the opportunity to at least compete to be a backup by the end of the year. We'll see. I mean, I think Joe Flacco's a backup this year no matter what, but certainly for next year. But he's not blind to a situation that there's an uncertainty surrounding Jalen Hurts as a starter. This is a litmus test year for Jalen Hurts as a starter. So if you're a backup quarterback, whether it's second or third, and you're looking for the ideal, and you're that competitive guy who wants to start, and you're young and you think you've proven something, you want to be in a situation where there's some uncertainty about the starting quarterback. And so that's where I think he probably sees the bigger picture.
Also, you got to think that because of the compensation he was traded for, I think it's safe to assume that as a player, you may want to be a starter in the NFL, but you also got to understand where you are right here, right now. Like I talked about earlier, I think Cam Newton has to reinvent himself if he wants to keep playing in the NFL. I think he needs to realize he's no longer Cam Newton, the MVP anymore, right? And, I think that players over time have to realize that to reinvent themselves, they have to recalibrate. And I think Minshew is taking a smart move and, playing the hand that's being dealt him.
Absolutely. He's got a fresh start, a clean slate, an opportunity here to learn the offense, run the scout team for a little while he learns the offense, and an opportunity down the road to prove himself. And, it's a little bit like Jalen Hurts getting the opportunity right now to prove himself as a starter. Minshew has the opportunity to prove that he can run this offense, do a good job with it, and then compete for whatever beyond this year. But yes, a lot of that takes that self-recognition that you have to have.
A couple of the quick nuggets before I let you go. Jeff Mosher, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Follow him on Twitter at Jeff Mosher NFL, and Inside the Birds podcast at Inside Birds on Twitter. Today, Rodney McLeod was seen wearing a pretty substantial knee brace at practice. Now, he's in pads. He's got the helmet, but that knee brace is pretty legit. So, should we read anything into the fact of Rodney McLeod's status?
No, I mean, definitely. I'm not sold that he's going to be ready for week 1. He said that's the goal the whole time, but I mean, not practicing at all during the preseason was an example, well, at least an indication that he might not be ready for week 1, certainly from a conditioning standpoint when you're not taking part in any part of practices. So again, you look at the practice squad, right? They waived 2 safeties, but brought both of them back. That's Elijah Riley and also Graylin Arnold, who I believe they call a D-back. He's got, safety corner kind of versatility. So those are 2 guys right there, along with the ones that they kept, which are Marcus Epps and Kevon Wallace and Anthony Harris. And I think that's it, right, along with Rodney, because they only kept 4 safeties. But that's why I think they brought 2 back to the practice squad. I wouldn't be surprised if those 2 guys are activated for week 1 and week 2 as they continue to get Rodney back. It was a little surprising, though, that you mentioned Andrew Adams, who they cut, because not only is Rodney coming back, but I mean, Kevon Wallace has been banged up for a lot of camp here in the last few weeks too. So it'll be kind of interesting to see if they got 4 healthy safeties to be able to start week 1. Anthony Harris is 1. I think Marcus Epps is healthy right now, so that's 2. And then those 2 guys I mentioned from the practice squad will probably have to be 3 and 4 if the other 2 guys aren't ready. But we got 2 weeks, so Kevon Wallace could probably be ready by then.
You would hope, maybe, theoretically, because here's the thing with Wallace. It drives me nuts, Jeff. This guy was one of the leaders of Clemson's defense when they won a national championship. Yeah, he had to come to the NFL and start learning. But it feels like his entire time has been derailed. He gets derailed by COVID. He gets derailed by all these other things. Now he's getting derailed by injuries. It's like, is this guy just super unlucky? Like, what the heck?
I mean, that's a microcosm of the entire team, right? I mean, how many guys have not been healthy? Davion Taylor, what was his? Did he have an injury history? I don't know because he's
no, he didn't.
Yeah,
he played almost every game at Colorado.
That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, look, you've seen the way the team has reacted this preseason as far as preserving starters in preseason games, having shorter practices. In general, they're healthy right now. I mean, I don't think they lost anybody for the year this preseason, except for Jason Kroom. Jason Kroom they lost for the year. Tyree Jackson they lost for 6 to 10 weeks. So that's going to happen. But the one guy wasn't going to make the team, and the other guy was going to make it as a developmental guy. So their starters and most of their backups right now are healthy with some bumps and bruises here, like Kevon Wallace. So I think they're in a good spot overall health-wise. But yes, you were hoping at safety particularly that they would have better overall health.
Jeff Mosher, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, at Jeff Mosher NFL on Twitter. The next issue of the podcast drops tomorrow morning. Jeff and Adam will be together on the pod. Jeff, appreciate you jumping on. Good conversation. And you'll be back next week with Mike Gill on Wednesday because Monday there's no show. I thought I'd let you know here.
Oh, good for me. Day off for me. All right, thanks. Take care, Josh. Have a good one. Have a good weekend.
Take care, Jeff. Jeff Mosher joining us here on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, Football at 4 been brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Atlantic City Resorts. Proud sponsors of Football at 4, Caesars Entertainment Atlantic City Resorts. Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on 97.3 ESPN. A bunch of messages to get to. I want to get to them next. Of course, you can chime in throughout the show as you listen to the show, wherever you're listening, on your radio, on your phone, on the website. Obviously, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app is free. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. 97.3ESPN.com. You can listen to the show as well. So I got a ton of messages. I see messages from Jeff. I see messages from Elliot. I see messages from Dom. I see messages from Dan and EHT. So I'm going to try to get to all you guys on the other side. And, of course, don't forget, coming up at 4:40 p.m. today, Paul Hudrick talk more about Sixers and the Ben Simmons situation. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports at 5:25. Also to come here on the Sports Bash, Josh Hennig, filling for Mike Gill on a Hump Day Wednesday on 97.3 ESPN.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. The Eagles open the 2021 season next Sunday in Atlanta against the Falcons.
Flying back. Here comes the rush. He's hit. They've got him back at the 35.
Pre-game coverage begins at noon. Merrill and Mike call all the action starting at 1. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station. You can watch the Sports Bash live now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 97.3 ESPN or visit our website, 973ESPN.com.
Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill. Hump Day, Wednesday edition of the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Now, my first thanks to Seattle. So don't give this hour of Sports Bash being brought to you by Prop Swap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet, take your profit, find out how at PropSwap.com or by downloading the Prop Swap app today. I got a ton of messages to get to. We'll get to all of them right here, as many as I can here. It's about 11 minutes from now. We'll be joined by Paul Hudrick from Liberty Ballers, former Sixers insider. Excuse me. 4973ESPN.com. So, wow, excuse me. So we got this segment and then the top of the 5 o'clock hour. So I got a ton of messages to get to. Excuse me. I got a little piece of it in my throat here. Sorry about that. That was very unexpected. That's the mistake you make of trying to eat something very small during the break, and then you realize that maybe you didn't drink enough water before you came on the radio. But I got a bunch of messages to get to here. We're going to get to them here as well as 5 o'clock on the Sports Bash. Don't forget, you can message the show directly through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. But I got a ton of messages to get to. First of all, I asked JD from Brigantine to follow up on his text. And he said what he was trying to say, because he said voice to text was not cooperating. He said, I'm just wondering when you have time to watch a movie because you work so much. First of all, JD, I appreciate your following up. Typically, right now, it would be either late at night or on my day off, which is Sunday. The problem is that this Sunday is the last Sunday without NFL football. So this will be the last Sunday I can go out and watch a movie. I got football to watch, man. So that means after this weekend, I'm going to watch Shang-Chi this Sunday. Then moving forward, it'll have to be some random night, during the week when I don't have a conflict of watching sports. I'll squeeze it in. But I appreciate you chiming in. Dan from EHC says, I don't have any idea what's going to happen with this Ben Simmons circus. This kind of player is very unusual. He can and won't shoot. Shooting in basketball is like punching in boxing. It's strange, dude, if you ask me. Listen, Ben Simmons, his situation is beyond strange, Dan EHT. It's one of those things where I don't think Ben Simmons is fully cognizant of what he's even doing at times. What I mean by that is, I said it earlier, Ben thinks that what he is doing is good enough. Ben thinks, because he's been a 3-time All-Star and twice been NBA defensive first team, that he thinks that's good enough. Ben Simmons thinks that it's all kosher, that he's a good enough player. And the problem is that he doesn't want to get better. He doesn't want to do other things. And I think part of it, as I said earlier in the show, is in part because Brett Brown, the Sixers, when Brian Colangelo drafted him, wanted to pigeonhole him into being a point guard. And I think they misread his talent. The Milwaukee Bucks never told Giannis Antetokounmpo, you're the point guard. Back in the 90s, the Detroit Pistons never told Grant Hill, you're going to be the point guard. In Orlando and in Houston, they never told Tracy McGrady, you're going to be the point guard. But all three of those players were, in many ways, primary ball handlers in their offenses because of the fact of their skill set. But they were never the point guard. They were never the official orchestrator of the offense. Okay? Those players, though, had other point guards on the team. I think the Sixers tried so hard to pigeonhole Ben Simmons into this role that it's backfired. Dan from Tuckerton says, Ben Simmons is a great borderline elite talent. However, his lack of free throw ability and inability to progress and be willing to shoot the ball makes him subpar point guard. A point guard is supposed to shoot the ball and not be a liability at the free throw line. My opinion, he's 6'10". He's better served as a power forward. Once he's willing to shoot the ball, he has a better skill set to be like Dirk. That's from Dan Tuckerton. I don't know about Dirk, but I agree that your point guard has to make free throws. You trust the point guard with the ball in his hand in the final moments of the game to go to the foul line, hit foul shots. And it was something that Jason Kidd had to work on. He was not a great foul shooter or outside shooter beginning of his career. He had to work on it. He had to progress and build up to that. So I think there's that to consider as well. Message. Elliot was a little confused about what Jeff said earlier. Elliot asks, so are you saying the Eagles have to wait 3 weeks until they can promote Howard to the 53 after Tyree Jackson is on IR? Okay, so here's the deal with the way it works. Jordan Howard is what is known as a vested veteran. So once you cut him, you can't bring him back immediately onto the roster. So the way it works is the Eagles have him on the practice squad. They can only promote him on game day for a couple weeks. Then after that, they can cut somebody on the regular roster and put him on the main roster. So this is kind of like putting a placeholder on him. It's kind of like, back in the day when if you were going down to the shore, summer's almost over, and we would have somebody stand in a parking spot. So you have your friend or your family member stand in the parking spot outside the house to make sure that when you drove the car around the block, you could get into that spot before anyone else did. Or was I the only one who had to do that? Anyway, it's kind of like what the Eagles are doing here. Jordan Howard is being put on the practice squad as a placeholder for a couple of weeks while they sort out the rest of the roster, because even when they put Tyree Jackson on the injured reserve, there's somebody else they can go out there and get. There are other players they can kind of shuffle the deck for. Jeff asks, is Landon Dickerson 100% or close? He's limited at practice. He is not participating in full team drills. He's participating in a lot of individual drills. I think Dickerson is going to be inactive for a couple weeks, and then he'll be good to go as a backup. Dom chimes in and says, happy to hear from Ertz, but also expecting a random trade by week 3 because, come on, it's the Eagles. Listen, I think there's a Howie trade still to come. I don't know if it's coming before the season or week 3, but by the trade deadline, I feel very comfortable almost saying you can guarantee Howie's going to make a deal. All right. I think Howie is using the way this roster is set up right now as a caveat to make deals, because we know as injuries happen around the league, the Eagles have depth at a handful of positions. They have a bunch of extra tight ends. They have a bunch of extra linebackers. They have a bunch of extra offensive linemen. 10 offensive linemen, 7 linebackers, and then 4 tight ends. If you include the idea that Richard Rodgers is out there, and the theory is that they could potentially try to bring him back at another point in time. So in my mind, I assume that the Eagles have more moves to come. And we saw Chris Herndon get traded to the Vikings to fill their void without Irv Smith, who is expected to miss the rest of the season. He'll be out 4 to 5 months. So I'm assuming the Eagles are going to make some trades. There's going to be movement because they have players to be traded. And like I said, these practice squad players, they got slipped through the waiver wire and they got slid right on that practice squad. Very convenient. All right, we'll get more back to your messages a little bit later in the show, but coming up next, Paul Hudrick, who's now with Liberty Ballers, former Sixers insider for 97.3 ESPN.com, joins us next to talk more about Ben Simmons and the Sixers fiasco here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig, filling for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN.
The Touchdown Radio Network season begins with a Thursday night Big Ten battle as the 4th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes visit the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Head coach P.J. Fleck enters season number 5 with the Gophers as they look to rebound from a disappointing 3-4 record last year. Even with a new quarterback, the Ohio State Buckeyes are again eyeing a Big Ten championship and a college football playoff berth. The Ohio State Buckeyes and Minnesota Golden Gophers, 8 p.m. Eastern this Thursday.
On 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's football station.
First Bank of Sea Isle is Cape May County's lending expert, standing strong with you at First Bank of Sea Isle. Find out how First Bank of Sea Isle can simplify your banking needs. Your partner since 1888. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash Hump Day Wednesday edition here on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Of course, Sports Bash being brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan is now open on the Black Horse Pike at Egg Harbor Township next to Home Depot. Visit them online at mattblattnissan.com. To get more into the Sixers and the NBA, as this week has been utterly ridiculous, in my opinion, considering this is the time of year we talk football, we talk baseball, but no, the Sixers and Ben Simmons and now Joel Embiid are completely taking over our lives this week. So getting more into that, former Sixers insider for 97.3 ESPN.com and now working for Liberty Ballers, the one and only Paul Hudrick joins the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Paul, good to see you and publicly congratulate you on your new gig. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Josh. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'm very, very excited to talk to you today.
I'm excited to talk to you. I just wish it was under a little bit less ridiculous circumstances because, on Friday, Shams goes on that show, drops what he said about the Sixers and Ben Simmons. Then he writes the article on The Athletic. Then Keith Pompey reports what he reports yesterday. And then Joel Embiid decides to tweet up a storm. So of the last several days, what is your reaction to this? Basically, there's more than just smoke. There is a full-blown fire here.
Yeah, the word that keeps coming back to mind to me is disappointment. Just when I think about everything the Sixers kind of and the fans really have gone through for the last, bunch of years, not first everything they went through with the process, and you thought like, hey, here's the fruits of the process are Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. At least we have that. We have two all-star players, which is a lot more than a lot of other franchises can say. We have two young all-stars that haven't even hit their primes yet. And, a lot of disappointment along the way when you talk about, Sam Hinkie and that situation, Brian Colangelo and kind of how that, was kind of a disaster, the Jimmy Butler situation, Brett Brown losing his job and the ill-fated Al Horford, Josh Richardson experience, all this that we've all kind of gone through. And now here we are, and it's just more drama. With Ben Simmons now, it seemed to me all along like his camp was on the same page as the Sixers. The Sixers were exploring options to trade him, and Rich Paul and Clutch in his camp, they were willing to accept the trade. Now it's to the point where you see that report yesterday, and this isn't just we're okay with a trade. This is we are hell-bent on a trade. We are desperate to get traded out of Philadelphia. So I'm just going to keep coming back to that word, Josh. It's disappointing.
Should we read anything you think into the timing of all this? Because like I said, this is typically a week that it's all about football. It's all about baseball. And we're talking Ben Simmons and the Sixers all of a sudden.
Definitely. Timing is a huge factor. Training camp begins on the 28th. So we're rapidly approaching that day. That'll be here before we know it. So I think a big part of it is, in order to try to accelerate the process, the best way that they could do that is to hold, for Ben Simmons to hold out during training camp. That's one way to kind of try to see if you can get the Sixers to really budge and make a trade happen. Is that going to work? I don't know. Let's see. Maybe Daryl Morey decides to play a little chicken with it and says, all right, then hold out. If we don't see an offer we like, we're not going to trade you because his value's not going to get any lower if he holds out. Certainly not going to get any higher either, but it's going to stay the same whether he holds out or not. So the teams that are interested in him are still going to be interested in him. So I do think the timing is purposeful in that, you kind of got the sense, Josh, at least for me, that they were willing to take this thing into training camp and perhaps into the season. And Wait to see what happens with Damian Lillard. Wait to see what happens around the league if another deal shakes loose, or one of the teams that really wants Ben Simmons starts to get a little antsy and ponies up a little bit more, or gets a third team. Just opening up the possibilities for something better. And this seems like the response from Ben Simmons camp is, no, we're not going to afford you that luxury. If you're going to trade me, do it now.
I'm glad you mentioned the two things there. One, the multiple teams that are still interested in him. And two, the fact that this might be involved a third or a fourth team. Because I've said multiple times, Paul, I just can't see a scenario where you could have a 1-for-1 trade. I just don't see how the money and the logistics work out. And even the James Harden trade ended up being, 4 or 5 teams at the end of the trade. That's James Harden, for goodness sake. So, Ben Simmons is not James Harden. So, to me, this is not going to be an easy trade to make. And I still hold to the theory that, listen, Daryl Morey might be asking for the stars, but he might have to land on walking on the clouds. And this might be all negotiating tactic to force another team to maybe bite a little extra hard on their lip and give you something. Because at the end of the day, you're not giving up Ben Simmons for a bag of basketballs.
Right. Even though some fans would be perfectly content with that scenario.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. The guy's a 3-time All-Star. He was runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, I get it with the deficiencies. I get that he's been a disappointment in the postseason. But this is a guy that's 25 years old and still has a ton of value around the league. And you look at franchise, like let's say, some of the teams that are really interested in him. A team like Minnesota. In Philadelphia, our expectations are a championship. That's what everyone wants. That's what everyone expects. You have an MVP caliber player in Joel Embiid. You have a coach in Doc Rivers that has won a championship. You have a guy in Daryl Morey, an executive that's been close. That's the goal. That's what everyone wants and expects here. A team like Minnesota, if Ben Simmons goes there, plays with Karl Anthony Towns, and they make the playoffs, Ben Simmons will be a god in Minnesota. Like, the bar is just not the same. So I think, a team like Minnesota will pony up. They desperately want Ben Simmons. They really do. Now, to what you kind of alluded to, what does the package look like? A package that just includes Minnesota for Ben Simmons is not attractive. You're either taking back D'Angelo Russell's contract, which yuck, or you're taking back, like Patrick Beverley and Malik Beasley, which those players in a vacuum are fine. They're good players. They could help the Sixers, and their contracts are reasonable, but that's not enough. That's not nearly enough for Ben Simmons. So I've always been of the belief that if a team like Minnesota is involved, they're going to have to get a third team, fourth team, to your point about the James Harden trade. It's going to be a complicated deal, and that could be a part of it. Part of it could be that Daryl Morey's just, this is a guy who's responsible for orchestrating one of the most complicated and elaborate trades ever to get Robert Covington to Houston. So, these things take time. It's not unreasonable to think that it has taken him this entire summer to kind of try to cobble something together. So, yeah, and I would say, as much as I think when I first saw that report, Josh, my reaction was, oh, man, this is really going to hurt them as far as trade value and leverage. I don't know that it really does, because he's still under contract for 4 years, even if he sits out. And the teams that wanted him before still want him, and there's still a market there. So I don't think – does it hurt their leverage? Perhaps, but I think it's getting exaggerated a little bit how much it's going to hurt their leverage.
Paul Hudrick joining us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, at Paul Hudrick on Twitter, community producer for Liberty Ballers. Go check out all of his work over there with Liberty Ballers. He's now there, former Sixers insider for 97.3 ESPN.com. Paul, the other side of what's happened is Joel Embiid decided to tweet away today. And I want to start with the slightly more serious point. And, Paul, I want to get your point on this. I've been saying for about a week now, since last week actually, that I think that we need to be more, us as media, have to be more upfront about this. Joel Embiid coming out and saying, I never said this USA Today before, it's not true. We've heard the Tyrese Maxey rumor that he was demanding out of Philadelphia, that's not true. We got to highlight the fact that there are certain people who are credible reporters in this business, and there are other people who are just vomiting stuff out there for clicks. And I think, for a lot of fans out there, they may have trouble differentiating because they don't live and breathe this every day like we do. I think it's very important that we differentiate that listen, this is the reporting. This is our opinion. This is our analysis. And we are not taking our cues from random dude looking for click vomit online.
Yeah, I mean, there's and I don't want to, get too much into it, but like the idea, Liberty Ballers, we didn't run with that report about Tyrese Maxey because I didn't feel great about running with it because I couldn't substantiate it and it didn't feel right. And then you saw that reporter retracted that report today. So I think, yes, that's, part of it is, as a fan, like you said, Josh, they're not living and breathing this like we are. Like, part of my job is to sit on the internet all day and find stuff and decipher, is this credible? Is this worth writing about? Is this worth digging into further? Like, that's what my job is. That's what our job is to dig deeper into these things and figure out what's legit and what's not. So, to the average fan, it's rough out there. It's tough to dissect this. And I would say one thing, when you look at like a Keith Pompey, Keith covers the team. Keith is with the team every day. He travels. As far as I know, he is the only beat reporter that travels with the team on basically every road trip. So, his information, it's going to be pretty darn good because he's with the team. He covers the team. And that's like, guys, to me, I tend to lean on more guys who cover the team. And then also when you're talking about guys who maybe don't necessarily cover the team, the very credible national guys who there are plenty of. There are plenty of guys and gals that are very trustworthy, very respectable, have really great sources around the league and report, very well and get their facts straight. So I think that's, if you're an average fan and you don't have, and you have a job and you don't have time to decipher all of this, I would say always lean on certain people that, and like, I'm going to be the type of person, like when I'm responsible with what I tweet, man. I'm not going to just say stuff to say stuff. And if there is something that doesn't sit right with me or doesn't feel right to me, I'm not going to retweet it and I'm probably not going to comment on it. So I think it's a matter of kind of building, that good Twitter following of as far as like, if you're follow the people that are credible. And if you're seeing something that's not amongst those people, you really need to dissect it and you really need to take some time to think whether or not you think it's legit.
And then one more Embiid point before I let you go. Embiid, he had a lot of things. I love Ben Simmons. I want to play with him. He went all that. But then the final tweet is, to me, the kicker. Because Embiid says, and I'm quoting, for clarity, I love the criticism. I love when I'm told I can't do something. It makes me work harder to prove everyone wrong. But not everyone is built like that. And it's just like, Joel, you just went on for all this stuff, and then you just dropped that at the end of the conversation, and it's just like, it just feels like we're back to square one all over again.
Yeah, I mean, so if I'm being honest, I thought it was innocent. I don't think he meant anything by it as far as like it being directed towards Ben Simmons. I could certainly see how someone could make that inference. This is why Twitter kind of sucks, because you get 160 characters, and that's all you got to work with. And it's, sometimes stuff gets lost. Sometimes, messages don't get conveyed properly. That's when we talk about text messages versus phone calls. Like, that's kind of the thing. Sometimes stuff gets lost. And I think this is an instance where I thought it was innocent. I don't think he meant anything by it. I thought largely his point in that whole tweet storm, which, by the way, I think maybe he should have stopped after like 3 tweets. That maybe is where he should have stopped. Not that I completely disagree with everything he said, and not that I totally agree with everything he said, but I think maybe he should have stopped after like 3 tweets. But I think the main message he was trying to convey is that he has a great respect for Ben Simmons. He has enjoyed playing with Ben Simmons, which, quite frankly, Josh, I've never gotten the impression that that's not true. In my years covering the team, I've always felt like they had a mutual respect for one another. They weren't best friends off the court. Rarely guys are. That's not always the case. They have very different personalities. They have very different interests. So that's not surprising. But I thought they definitely had a mutual respect for one another. I thought they always liked playing together. And as he said, you check the numbers, and over the years, they are better together than they are apart. That's just been a fact throughout both of their careers when they have played together. So I think that was the main crux of his thread was just to say, hey, like whatever you're going to say about mine and Ben Simmons' relationship, it's not true. I like Ben Simmons. I want him back. I respect him. And the other stuff was just, I think, just him going off. He was there and he just kept going with it.
Well, also on Twitter is Paul Hudrick, at Paul Hudrick on Twitter. You can catch all of his dissemination of Sixers news and content over at Liberty Ballers Now. So check them out and follow Paul for all your Sixers insight as well. Paul, appreciate you jumping on today. Always good to chat with you. Take care of yourself, my man.
You too, Josh. Very good to see you, my friend.
Josh Hennig here, filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. All right, coming up next hour, we'll get back to your thoughts and comments. I still have new messages flooding into the show. Keep them coming as we are here on 97.3 ESPN. A Hump Day Wednesday edition of the Bash. We'll be talking Ben Simmons. We'll be talking Eagles. We'll be talking NFL. We've been talking all kinds of stuff throughout the show. We even talked movies earlier in the show. I mean, what the heck? I mean, this has been a wild show. I'm so glad to have you guys on board here on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, this hour of the Sports Bash has been brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet, take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or by downloading the PropSwap app today. 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. We can message the show. We get all of your messages. So wherever you're listening to the show, on your radio, on your phone, on your computer, wherever you're consuming us, we'll get to your messages next. Josh Hennig, filling for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN.
The Philadelphia Eagles play on 97.3 ESPN FM. Listen to every game with the voice of the Eagles, Merrill Reese and Mike Quick. Pre-game coverage from the Eagles Radio Network starts 1 hour before kickoff. Your official home for Eagles football in South Jersey is 97.3 ESPN FM. Brought to you locally by
First Bank of Sea Isle, Cape May County's community bank. Cape Regional Health System. For a healthier life, call 609-463-CAPE. Boardwalk Honda. From Maine to Miami, nobody beats a Boardwalk deal. Online at boardwalkhonda.com. GMS Law. Make the right call with 4 convenient locations to serve you. Visit gmslaw.com. Halvey Electric. Now offering residential services for your home and business. Jim Malamut at Green Tree Mortgage. Your best play to refinance today. Deborah Heart and Lung Center. DemandDeborah.org. BMW of Atlantic City. Closer than you think. Online at bmwatlanticcity.com.
South Jersey's home of the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
I am the voice of the voiceless.
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station.
Driving you home, 5 o'clock hour of the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill. You're on 97.3 ESPN FM. 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Wherever you're listening to us, whether it's on your car, on your phone, on your computer, wherever you're getting the show, we are glad to have you guys on board the show. We have a ton of messages to get to. I still haven't gotten to. We will get to them in this segment right here. And, of course, coming up at 5:25, Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports NFL writer, will join us to talk more about the Eagles and the NFL as the Eagles practice squad was announced today. And according to the Eagles Twitter and website, it's all guys who were cut yesterday and the day before. Also, this Ben Simmons-Sixers stuff has escalated a little bit because Joel Embiid has gotten involved in the conversation. So we've been getting your guys' feedback throughout the show. All that and more today on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. So, as promised, I will get to all of your guys' thoughts and comments as you keep messaging the show in just a moment. Don't forget, Sports Bash being brought to you by JCPenney. It's Labor Day home sale, and there are deals coming in hot. Get instant savings on furniture, mattresses, and more. Shop doorbusters all day, Friday to Monday, while they last at JCPenney. So just to remind everybody, one of the things that's been going on today is, as we open the show, we talked about the fact that twofold. One, this is the time of year where we're talking about football. We talk about the Eagles, talk some college football earlier in the show with Jason Fitz. And it's very unusual to have this much NBA and Sixers news popping off this time of year. But listen, it started on Friday. On Friday, Shams went on a show that is run by Stadium and Bally Sports. Shams, one of the top NBA insiders on the planet, and came out and said, hey, man, there's still conversation with the Sixers trading Ben Simmons. On Monday, he expanded on that in his article in The Athletic. Yesterday, Keith Pompey drops the next stage, saying that Ben Simmons met with owner Josh Harris, Daryl Morey, Elton Brand, and Doc Rivers and said, I want to be traded. And then today, Joel Embiid says, there's no friction between me and Ben. I love Ben. I love playing with Ben. I respect him. And basically goes on to say that if Ben basically, one of Ben Embiid's points was if Ben's trade is not because of him. It's not because he asked for Ben to be out of town or anything like that. So there's so much to process, so much to work through. And it's just so different for this time of year because, listen, yesterday, half of my day was anticipating and looking to Eagles 53-man roster, 4 p.m. NFL's cutting guys going on the waiver wire. And then there was more Sixers news. Last Friday, it was the first football Friday of 2021 for me. And then the Shams report comes out because there was college football last weekend. There'll be this weekend as well. This is not a time of year where we usually get NBA or Sixers news. And I think that it's telling. And that's why I asked Paul Hudrick just a few minutes ago about this. And he elaborated. He agreed with me. Look, there is something to be said for the timing of this. There is something to be said for the fact that they decided to do this now because Paul said September 28th is training camp. That means we are 28 days from finding out if Ben Simmons is going to keep to his threat of not reporting to camp. And you got to think that, part of the reason why these reports come out is because someone has a incentive, an advantage. Stuff doesn't come out to the media just because. Someone has a motive, right? Or someone has a reason why they're putting information out there. And I think part of the reason why the information is out there is because both sides, the Sixers and Ben Simmons, want the deal to get done. And I think that's something to keep in mind with all this. Now, on the same day that we're dealing with all of this Sixers stuff, spoke to the media for the first time in months? Zach Ertz. Yeah, Zach Ertz and his blonde hair spoke to the media today. And Zach Ertz said, listen, it's all behind us. I want to be here. I want to be in Philadelphia. I love the fans. I want to play here. And it's a huge change from, it was just back in January, Zach Ertz felt like he was saying goodbye to Philadelphia. He was almost crying at the press conference. And today he's up there and it's completely different, aside from his blonde hair. The point is that there had to have been something said to him. There had to have been a moment this offseason between the moment he walked out of NovaCare to the moment he came back for training camp months later, that Zach Ertz and the Eagles came to some sort of compromise. They came to something, okay? I don't know if I want to call it detente per se, but there's definitely was a serious effort between both sides to try to resolve this, to make sure that they can move forward together. And listen, I got a message here from Dom. Dom says, either the Eagles realize they need to be 12 personnel this year because of their young receivers, or they're trying to boost Zach's trade value. Whatever the reason is, it's obvious that the Eagles and him came to some sort of compromise because even Ertz, I want to make sure I get the quote right, I got to read it here, but even Ertz told the media today that, let me just find it really quick. Here's Ertz, a quote. Howie Roseman stood firm on what he perceived to be fair trade value, and ultimately I can't fault the Eagles for that. So even Ertz understood that, listen, they're not going to trade me away for nothing. And Ertz went on to say, I love this city too much to quote-unquote burn it down, which is the reason why he said he was quiet through the offseason. Ertz said one of the best camps he's had in his 9-year career. He's looking forward to the season. And if we can get, even if it's an 80% version of what Zach Ertz was a couple of years ago when he was catching all those balls, remember, Zach Ertz is not old, okay? It's not like Zach Ertz is like some 36-year-old guy who's still trying to hang around. Zach Ertz is 30 years old. He turns 31 in November. And it was just 2019, 2 years ago, when he had 88 receptions. The year before, he had 116 receptions. 2 years ago, he caught 6 touchdowns. The 2 years before that, he caught 8 touchdowns in 2017 and 2018. Ertz had a bad year last year. The Eagles had a worse year last year. If you can get 80% to 90% of what Ertz was in 2017, 2018, and 2019, you still make this offense better. And this is something that I've talked about with multiple people who cover the team and multiple people who cover the NFL. Whether it's Dave Weinberg on a Weinberg Wednesday or Jeff Mosher on Football at 4 here on 97.3 ESPN, or, friends of the show like Andy McNamara from Sportsnet, or Emery Hunt from CBS Sports HQ, or Eric Edholm from Yahoo Sports, they all agree that Zach Ertz is still good enough to be a contributor and make this team better. So, to me, if Zach Ertz is invested on being here and the organization is intent on keeping him, Dom, whether they're trying to boost his trade value or they realize they have so many young receivers, they need some more veterans to work with this offense, whatever the reason is, I say it's a win-win. Because Zach Ertz benefits from being in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia benefits from Zach Ertz being here. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Some more messages to get to here on the show. By the way, shout out to Sean. Sean chiming in says, Josh, great job at filling in for Mike Gill. As always, gives me the applause and the thumbs up emojis. Well, Sean, I appreciate that. You know, I try to, I'm not here to replace Mike Gill. I'm here to keep the microphone going and the seat warm for his return. And then you can catch me on 6 p.m. the rest of the year. So when I'm not filling in for Mike Gill, I'm hosting Game Night here on 97.3 ESPN at 6 p.m. Some more messages coming in here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. We had a messenger chime in earlier today asking why all these quarterbacks, who was that? Here it is. Calvin from Wildwood messaged us through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City, saying, why is everybody saying all these quarterbacks are going to win the Rookie of the Year, but they forget who actually won the Heisman Trophy to be Devonta Smith. And I said, look, Devonta Smith is plus 2,000. And part of it is because I think a lot of people are unsure what the Eagles' offense is going to look like. Wide receiver is very dependent on the offense he is in for his productivity. There's a reason why that Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase were first-round picks. And it wasn't just because of their talent. It was because they were in a high-powered offense with Heisman Trophy winner Joe Burrow, right? Devonta Smith became the number one receiver when Judy and Ruggs went to the NFL, and then Waddle went down with an injury. And he had to step up. If Smith is getting the targets, he's getting the productivity, he can win Rookie of the Year, even though he is plus 2,000 odds. But a texter chimes in and says, Najee Harris will be the Rookie of the Year. Fantasy alert, says the message. And listen, I would definitely not hate on Najee Harris. Najee Harris has the best odds to win Rookie of the Year, who's not a quarterback right now, over at FanDuel Sportsbook. He currently is plus 900. So for those who don't know, it's plus 400 for Trevor Lawrence, plus 450 for Mac Jones, plus 650 for Justin Fields, plus 700 for Trey Lance, and plus 700 for Zach Wilson. I felt very comfortable saying that Trey Lance is not winning the Rookie of the Year because he's dealing with some sort of finger injury, and it looks like he's not even going to start for a portion of the season. It's hard for you to win a award like Rookie of the Year if you're not playing the full year. I think Justin Fields could theoretically still win the award just because of the fact that if Andy Dalton looks horrible against the Rams defense and Fields has to come in, or Andy Dalton gets injured versus the Rams, Justin Fields could be starting this season within the first couple weeks. I think the Jets team is just so poor, I don't see it. So to me, there's only two quarterbacks of the ones I just named. It's Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones who could win this award. But Najee Harris plus 900 is not a bad deal. Devonta Smith plus 2,000. A couple other messages coming into the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Croce chimes in on both the Eagles and the Sixers. Croce says, first of all, whether Ben Simmons said was 100% true or not, if he doesn't want to participate in camp and set the season, I say let him rot on the roster and he could hurt his own reputation and trade value. We already aren't going to get anything for him as it is. Might as well just be as spiteful and be vindictive as he is, says Croce. Says, P.S. I totally get the Sixers would never do this. It would be an awful business move, but just how I feel. Croce, listen, I think you have every reason to feel that way. I think that this Ben Simmons stuff has left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. I think that when it comes to the Sixers, Croce, you got to realize that for the 76ers, they got to do what's best for them. They got to put themselves in a position to do what's best for their organization. And I don't think it's a coincidence that, this team has not traded him yet. I think part of it is because, not just because they haven't gotten the value they want in return for him, but I think Daryl Morey is working the market. I told you guys this example before. It's like when you go to a car dealership. The dealer offers you the first the dealership offers you the first offer for your to buy a car. All right. And it's on you to not take the first deal. Not because the dealership is trying to always get a fast one. There's plenty of good people out there who are not trying to be manipulative, but it's on you to not just say yes to the first offer, because the first offer might not be in your best interest. Listen, if you have a number that you could pay on a car, it'd be a bad business decision if the dealership didn't at least try to get you at a number that is best for them. It's on you to negotiate to get the best deal for you. So Daryl Morey is haggling with the dealership. He's saying, I know that my trade-in value, in this case Ben Simmons, is worth more than what you say it is. And then the dealership, which is the rest of the NBA, is turning to Daryl Morey and saying, we understand that you think that Ben Simmons, the car that you're trading in, is worth more, but it's not worth what you think it's worth. So now it's about finding the middle ground. It's about finding somewhere between the exorbitant value that Daryl Morey has put on Ben Simmons and the value the rest of the league is initially willing to invest in getting Ben Simmons. Because at the end of the day, you're getting a star, an all-star, a 3-time all-star who's in his mid-20s, who's under contract control for 4 years. That has value. It may not be the value that Daryl Morey has set on it, but it has value. And it's on Daryl Morey and all the teams involved to make it work. And according to Shams Charania of The Athletic, according to Scoop B Robinson, NBA insider for Bally Sports, they have both reported that the Timberwolves desperately want Ben Simmons. There are other reports out there that the Timberwolves have been trying to find ways to make a trade work. Do not be surprised if Ben Simmons ultimately ends up in Minnesota, because Ben Simmons is very friendly with Karl Anthony Towns. And Karl Anthony Towns' best friend, D'Angelo Russell, is already there. A trio of those three makes a lot of sense. But if you're the T-Wolves, there's no package you can offer the Sixers that they would 100% want. So you got to get a third or fourth team involved. And that's where a team like Golden State or Sacramento or Denver or New Orleans or OKC or Cleveland gets involved, as reports out there have said. Now, Croce's other thing he says about the Eagles is, I'm not putting a jinx on Devonta Smith because I do like him, but I would like to see a stat on Heisman Trophy winners being successful in the NFL. My memory tells me they normally are busts, but I hope I'm wrong. Well, here's the thing. They're not all busts. All right. I think that there's two things to keep in mind with Heisman Trophy winners. I'm going to run down a list really quick for you in a moment. But here's two things to keep in mind. There's a huge difference between the Heisman Trophy winners who are quarterbacks and the Heisman Trophy winners who are not quarterbacks. Because think about it. A lot of quarterbacks who have won the Heisman, it's because they're on great teams. It's not always because they're great individuals. Peyton Manning didn't win the Heisman. That was won by Charles Woodson, for example. Charles Woodson, Hall of Fame career. Peyton Manning, Hall of Fame career. And I'm going to go down the list real quick in a moment, but I think that if you exclude quarterbacks and look at just position players, here's who's won the Heisman Trophy over the last couple decades, okay? Derrick Henry, 2015. That guy's a stud, right? He's a really good player. Mark Ingram before that. Not a great player, but he's had a very good decade worth of a career. Before that, the last non-quarterback to win before Mark Ingram, and I'm still scrolling, was Ron Dane, okay? Ron Dane, okay career, but definitely never lived up to expectations. Ricky Williams. If Ricky Williams doesn't have the hiatus because of marijuana, he might have had a Hall of Fame career. I mean, he did rush for over 10,000 rushing yards in his career. Charles Woodson, Hall of Fame career. Eddie George, great career. So from 95 on, the majority of those guys have good careers, Croce. So I think it's fair to say that, Devonta Smith, you're not putting a jinx on him, but I think it's fair to say that the quarterbacks are a problem, but not all of them. Because like I said, there's a lot of these Heisman Trophy winners who are just like Matt Leinart, Troy Smith, Tim Tebow, Sam Bradford, Robert Griffin III, Johnny Manziel. There's a lot of these quarterbacks who didn't work out. So I say take out the quarterbacks, and I think the success rate in the NFL is a little bit better. Let's get one more message in here. I got so many messages to get to here. It's wild, absolutely wild. And I want to get to those two messages just because they're going to be much more involved. I'm going to hold off. Here's what we're going to do. We got a couple messages that deserve attention, and I don't want to neglect you guys. So wherever you're listening to the show, on your radio, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, 97.3 ESPN.com. So whether you're in your car, on your phone, online, I want to get to all your messages, give you the proper time you deserve. Don't forget, you can direct message the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to the First Bank of Seattle City. And, of course, my appearance here on the Sports Bash being brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. College football is back, and FanDuel Sportsbook is making Week 1 even more exciting because right now, all customers get a risk-free bet on any Week 1 game. That's right. Place any Week 1 college football bet and get a refund in site credit if you don't win. Offers like this are just one of the many reasons I love betting college football on FanDuel Sportsbook. They're the number 1 rated sportsbook in America because FanDuel is easy to use, safe and secure with fast payouts. If you're new to FanDuel Sportsbook, sign up with promo code Hennig to also get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's promo code Hennig for new users on FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or to play and present in New Jersey. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $10 unless otherwise indicated. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Coming up next, CBS Sports NFL writer Jeff Kerr joins the show to get on the conversation here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig hanging out with you, filling in for Mike Gill on Hump Day Wednesday on 97.3 ESPN.
The Touchdown Radio Network season begins with a Thursday night Big Ten battle as the 4th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes visit the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Head coach PJ Fleck enters season number 5 with the Gophers as they look to rebound from a disappointing 3-4 record last year. Even with a new quarterback, the Ohio State Buckeyes are again eyeing a Big Ten championship and a college football playoff berth. The Ohio State Buckeyes and Minnesota Golden Gophers, 8 p.m. Eastern this Thursday.
On 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's football station. You can watch the Sports Bash live now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Search 97.3 ESPN or visit our website, 973ESPN.com.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We'll get to more of your messages a little bit later this hour. Like I said, I don't want to shortchange anybody's messages onto the show today. So we're going to go to Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports NFL writer. He joins the show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on 97.3 ESPN. Jeff Kerr's appearance on the Sports Bash being brought to you by the expert solar team of New Jersey, here in South Jersey. EMT Solar, Roofing, and Solar Guardians. Start your solar journey today by visiting ESPNsolar.com. Bunch of NFL news that's happened in the last 36 hours to get with Jeff Kerr. You know, since the last time I talked to Jeff Kerr this week, a lot's changed, but a lot has stayed the same, including, Jeff, how surprised are you that literally nobody the Eagles waived or cut was picked up by anybody?
I'm not honestly surprised, especially when it comes to Travis Fulgham. Eagles fans were talking like this guy was really, really good. And I kept trying to tell them he hasn't had a good camp. Outside of a 5-game stretch, he's been terrible. He only had like 7 catches for 110 yards since that 5-game stretch. I mean, really, he's just another guy. And, you know, in a way, the Eagles are kind of fortunate that he wasn't claimed, you know, and they were able to get him back because, you know, maybe he can provide some depth for that wide receiver group. But I'll tell you what, I think Jacksonville going after Tyron Johnson really hurt the Eagles. I think the Eagles were interested in him in some way, shape, or form. I'm not sure if they put in a claim for him. I know they were interested, but again, it's this isn't like fantasy football, Josh. As you know, waivers Jaguars could put a claim on 53 players. They'll get all 53. That's just the way it works. But they got the guys they wanted, and it's a shame, really, that the team that was 6th in the waiver wire didn't get anybody they wanted, as far as we know, and they didn't get a claim for anybody because they could have got Colin Johnson from Jacksonville.
Does it say something to you also, though, about, you know, the Eagles' plans? Because Jordan Howard is on the practice squad now. We know that's a placeholder situation. That's one of those. I was telling the story earlier, you know, anyone who's ever come down to the shore, you know, back in the day, we used to have the person stand in the parking spot on the street to make sure you didn't lose your parking spot when you came back around the corner to park there. I feel like that's what they're doing. The Eagles are doing. It's, hey, Jordan, stay on the practice squad till we figure out the rest of the roster, and then we'll make you a full active participant.
I feel like that's the whole league, too. Like, I know Doug Costin came back to the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was a surprise cut because he started games for them last year and played really well. But I think, you know, Jacksonville told a guy like him, hey, don't go anywhere. I mean, I know you want to be on an active roster, but it's almost like a holdaway spot. Yeah, that's pretty much what Jordan Howard did. Maybe he's the guy they eventually add on their roster whenever they put Tyree Jackson on the IR, because they're going to do that. So they have that short-term IR spot. He's not going to be out for the year, but he's going to be out a couple of months. So that's how I'm looking at it. And again, I think that's why teams were so quick to get guys back on their practice squads, was because of the IR spots and the COVID-19 spots and everything else. I think they told them, hey, look, this is the initial 53-man roster. No matter what happens. And then same for a lot of teams. Like I was doing like the Cardinals depth chart this week, the Chargers depth chart, a bunch of depth charts for CBS Sports. And I'm looking at, wow, they got like 2 or 3 guys on reserve COVID-19, Josh. So what does that mean? Are these guys going to come back? Well, yeah, some of these guys are. So some of these guys are on the 53-man roster now. They may not be on the 53 come Saturday.
Yeah, I'm curious to find out, Jeff. Also, we mentioned, Tuesday was the first 53, right? But then there's not just this week. We know how he loves to make trades. Like, how much of having 7 linebackers and 10 offensive linemen is Howie just dangling this piece of cheese out in front of the league saying, hey, man, if someone gets injured, call me, bro.
Well, look at the Matt Lombardo report today that they were looking to trade Dallas Goedert to the Minnesota Vikings. And it was going to be for a high draft pick. So obviously Minnesota went a different route. They figured, well, we can just get Chris Herndon to fill in for Irv Smith. So that was really the piece of cheese Howie Roseman was dangling. I think, and Zach Ertz basically confirmed Lombardo's report today because everything's bygones be bygones. Zach Ertz is all in and he wants to finish his career with the Eagles. And, that's when you got to wonder, okay, well, we have this franchise icon in Zach Ertz. If we can't sign Dallas Goedert, maybe we'll sign Zach Ertz. We'll trade Dallas Goedert for a high draft pick, and maybe we can use that to get somebody else in the mix. It's very possible. And I think Lombardo kind of said that might have been the extra leverage he would use to get Deshaun Watson. Okay. I just don't think that bridge is, I think that bridge is closed right now. I just look at it as he just doesn't want to come here. And look, I think they were pretty, and look, I know these guys lie to your face all the time, but they seemed pretty, look at me in the eye. Jalen Hurts is our quarterback.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that, when you go out and do the things you do with the roster, it's obvious this team is building at other positions that are way more focused than replacing or not replacing Jalen Hurts. Like you don't keep the group of receivers that you did if you weren't planning certain things, right? You don't keep all these offensive linemen if you don't look at last year and be like, we had 1 million injuries last year. We don't want to be caught red-handed again. So to me, the Eagles roster in many ways, based on what Howie said yesterday and what the Eagles have done with the practice squad, is we are trying to ensure that whatever happened last year does not happen this year with this young quarterback.
Absolutely. 100%. And they are 10 deep offensive line. I mean, they were so deep in the offensive line. Matt Pryor probably would have made this team if they weren't as deep on the offensive line as they were. Everybody likes to get on Matt Pryor. Matt Pryor was worth a 6th-round pick. He was worth as much as Gardner Minshew was worth. So look at it that way. And the Colts needed somebody. And I'm sure the Eagles probably would have traded another lineman there too, but not. But getting Landon Dickerson back, that's huge for this football team. They're so deep in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line. And everybody goes, okay, they only kept 5 receivers. I'm not surprised at that. But Zach Ertz is basically a 6th receiver for them. He really is. He's probably the 2nd or 3rd best wide receiver, definitely pass catcher on this team. So I look at it as J.J. Arcega-Whiteside definitely made the roster because of his special teams prowess. And I'll be honest, I think the last preseason game, it showed that, okay, maybe this guy has something. And we did invest a 2nd-round pick in him. Howie Roseman doesn't like to admit to his errors as quickly, but he does do it. I mean, look, they caught a bunch of 6th, 7th-round guys this year. It's just the nature of the beast. But, people were shocked out. Marlon, I can never pronounce his last name, the USC defensive tackle, made the 53. And I'm like, well, it's not really surprising considering they liked his development. He just wasn't the guy that stood out in camp. But again, it's certain players like him, Patrick Johnson, guys like that. They really like what they have at linebacker, at defensive line. They're not going to suffer a lot of injuries there. They covered their tracks with Steven Nelson signing this all season. I mean, really, if there is a concern on this football team, it is wide receiver because of the depth. It's not because of the players. It's because of the depth of wide receiver. If Jalen Reagor or Devonta Smith goes down, oh boy, are they in trouble.
Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, joining us here. He does every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here on 97.3 ESPN at Jeff Kerr, CBS on Twitter. Speaking of CBS, you had a chance to talk to Tony Romo today of CBS. And Tony Romo, who's – what's that?
And next week, too, I get to talk to him.
There you go. Well, the perks of being with CBS is you get the chance to get in touch with people that maybe the rest of us would never get a chance to maybe grab a hold of unless a very unique situation. And listen, Romo was very complimentary of the Eagles. And I thought that was very interesting because, Romo everybody loves Romo on the broadcast, right? Romo's calling the plays before they happen. So what do the Eagle fans think the Eagles think now that Romo thinks, hey, they could be a surprise team?
It's funny, too, Josh. When I mentioned the Eagles to him, like, Tony always likes to have, like, this nonchalant thing, but he gets excited about stuff. He goes, I really get tired of people getting on Jeffrey Lurie. He runs one of the finest organizations in all of football. And he said, I know because I played him. And he said he really loves the Nick Sirianni hire. He thinks that's the perfect player development guy. He did call this year a transition year, but he said anything goes in the NFC East. And he said they got a lot of talent on that roster. And, he wasn't as complimentary toward Jalen Hurts as he was toward Zach Wilson and other players I asked, Tua Tagovailoa, Josh Allen, Patrick, but he sees them more. He's not going to see Jalen Hurts as much. But he said, look, this guy has an opportunity to be a franchise quarterback. And everything I have seen, it looks like he's going to be that. He goes, and he basically says, well, we all know he's a leader. But he said he really likes Nick Sirianni's offense, how they're running. He's glad they patched up the Zach Ertz situation. He thinks that defense is going to be really, really good. This is just the basis of our conversation. I'm going to have all this out at CBS Sports later this week. But he really gave a lot of praise to Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman. He gave praise to Lurie for sticking with Roseman. He said, look, the guy's one of the better GMs in the National Football League. He won a Super Bowl. He said, I know Eagles fans like to get on him, but he said, I can tell you, there's a team down in Dallas that would take a GM like Howie Roseman. So, again, it's funny, just how the apple meets the eye. I guess Eagles fans look at it as, okay, Howie Roseman our GM for too long. And you got a guy like Tony Romo, who is like me, knows a lot of people around the league and knows a lot of front offices around the league. Not everybody's going to be Brett Veach. Not everybody's going to be like that. Brandon Beane, when Ozzie Newsome was GM in the Ravens, same thing. I forget where Ozzie Newsome's still pretty much in charge. But
it's Eric DeCosta now.
Yeah, it's Eric DeCosta. That's it. I knew it was Eric something. But, yeah, it's the same thing. Romo, I'll tell you what, Josh, he had a lot of praise for the AFC East. He says that division is basically going to take over as the most dominant division in football. He's really high on the Patriots. He's high on the Dolphins. He thinks the Dolphins are going to make the playoffs. He thinks Patriots are going to be a team no one wants to play this year. He thinks Buffalo's going to be really good. He thinks the Jets are actually going to be half decent. He's right. I mean, if you look around, they all got franchise quarterbacks there. And I thought that was very intriguing. I didn't even get a chance to ask him about the Chiefs. I'm going to ask him about them and Tampa Bay and all that next week. But overall, and I want to get more of his thoughts on the NFC East because we basically just focused on the Eagles. But overall, he really, like he said, they're going to surprise some people. They're going to shock some people this year. And I think that holds a lot of merit because the guy knows his stuff. He really does. And he said they can go as far as Jalen Hurts takes them. So if he thinks they're going to shock some people without really giving Jalen Hurts a lot of complimentary, at least, today, who knows? He said this team has the capability to win 10, 11 football games. So that's very telling.
What does it say to you that, again, there's another person who is complimentary of the owner and the GM and the coach, and inside the city, half the city hates these guys. It's what does it say to you that the perception around the league of the Eagles is almost the opposite of what some of the fan base is?
And, this is where I get tired of the whole national media don't know what they're talking about. I'm like, does the national media not know what we're talking about? Or do you not know what you're talking about? Because you're looking through your midnight green lenses here. That's all you're looking at. You're not comparing yourself to a badly run organization like the New York Giants. You're not comparing yourself to the Los Angeles Chargers. Again, they're not a badly run organization right now because they got Justin Herbert, but they were for a long time. You're not comparing. You're always comparing things. Look, this is a city that wanted Andy Reid out of here. And I said, that's a mistake. It is a mistake. I don't care if they're 4-12. I knew it was time, but it was a mistake. And I turned out to be right. I don't like to pat myself on the back for that, but Andy Reid's still a really good coach. He's only had 1 year where he's won less than 10 games since he left. That's pretty insane if you think about it, Josh. And, I just think everybody just looks at it through their team, and they only care about their team. But then when you get a guy like Tony Romo who's giving them compliments, and Jim Nantz was the same way, and look, they talk to these guys. They get the access I can't get because they are the faces of CBS Sports. They know. And look, they don't have to suck up to Howie Roseman. They don't. It's more of they don't know us anything as a broadcast partner. It's that just tells you what someone like Tony Romo thinks about an organization that he's pretty confident they're going to turn things around. And, that's what I want to ask him about last year, because they did the Eagles-Packers game. They did the game Jalen Hurts came in. And we talked about a little bit at the Super Bowl, but not in depth. So I kind of want to know, like, what they thought about the Carson Wentz situation, how he's going to do in Indy. Why do you guys think? Because by then, like, I remember, like, I didn't get a chance to talk to him that week leading up to the game. But I was really curious to think, are they going to bench Carson Wentz? What do you guys think? What do you guys think what's wrong with Carson Wentz? And during the Super Bowl when I interviewed him, that wasn't like a thing. That who cared about the Eagles? We cared about the Chiefs and we cared about the Buccaneers. So it's going to be really interesting to just hear more of a national perspective from those guys. And look, I think Eagles fans should be, look, this guy's a cowboy. He's a cowboy. This isn't Michael Strahan, who always toots his horn for the Giants. Tony Romo doesn't toot his horn for the Cowboys a lot. He doesn't. But he's a big believer in Dak Prescott, which makes sense. He was his teammate, and he knows Dak's a leader. And again, I think Dallas fans like to hear that, but it's true. And, Tony Romo is very honest. And that's the thing, Josh. I mean, I know I'm kind of going off on tangent here, but I just think Eagles fans look at one thing. It's always one thing. I think the only time Philly fan, and I think this is true too, look at the Ben Simmons situation. I think people are overvaluing him. He's not as worth as much as they think he's worth. It's the same thing with the Eagles. Like, the Eagles probably overvalue Zach Ertz. The fans probably overvalue him. But around the league, I heard, look, they thought the third, fourth round pick was too high, but it ended up working well for Zach Ertz because he felt the Eagles valued him, and that's all that matters. And yeah, it's just, they just look through one lens only and not seeing the big picture. There's 32 teams in the league, not just one.
Jeff, one more before I let you go, and I always appreciate you jumping on. The conversation came up today about Rookie of the Year, and somebody brought up earlier in the show that everyone's talking about the quarterbacks, right? But it was Devonta Smith who won the Heisman last year in college football. And, I decided to say, all right, let's look at the guys who have won the Heisman who are not quarterbacks, because usually the busts in the NFL who are Heisman Trophy winners are quarterbacks, right? It's not usually the other players. So you got guys like Derrick Henry. He's a stud. Mark Ingram. Pretty darn good career overall when you think about it. Ron Dane was probably a disappointment. Ricky Williams wasn't for the marijuana thing. Probably goes to the Hall of Fame because he has over 10,000 rushing yards. And Charles Woodson's a Hall of Famer. Eddie George, a great career. So from 95 onward, these guys usually had pretty good careers. So, it's fair to say that Devonta Smith, as one person texted, they're not trying to jinx it, but listen, he won the Heisman Trophy, and so far it's been a pretty good indication of NFL talent outside the quarterback position.
Yeah, you're right. And again, Rookie of the Year is such a quarterback-driven award. If Trevor Lawrence throws for 35 touchdowns, he's probably going to win Rookie of the Year because he broke the rookie record for touchdowns. It's just the way it is. But I'll tell you what, it's you look at and you pointed out, I was going to point out Charles Woodson, but you beat me to the punch. Same with Eddie George. Eddie George had over 10,000 rushing yards in his career. He was a stud for the Tennessee Titans for a lot of years. And yeah, I have no doubt Devonta Smith is going to be a really good football player in the National Football League. He's already an excellent route runner. I watch a lot of old Eagles games, Josh. I don't think I've seen a route runner as good as Devonta Smith since Irving Fryer. And Irving Fryer with the Eagles was pretty good. Yeah, there's a couple of years. With the quarterbacks he had, he was really, really good. So if you can get like Irving Fryer's 1,300 yard production out of Devonta Smith in years 1 and 2, you're taking that any step of the way. And look, I think putting a bar on him like a Justin Jefferson leap is much, because Justin Jefferson was just unbelievably out of this world in 2020. But it is fair to think Devonta Smith can get 1,000 yards in this offense, especially with the way Nick Sirianni's going to set him up with the short passing game. I'll tell you what, Josh, you're going to see a lot of yards after the catch. You're going to see a lot of receptions out of him, and you're going to see him make some big plays. Again, I see an Isaac Bruce. I see a Marvin Harrison in this guy. It's going to be fun to watch. And this is another question I want to ask Roman next week. Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle. Who's going to be the best one this year? Because I'm curious. It's, and he's going to see two of them a lot. And maybe if he does an Eagles game, Devonta Smith, I know he's watched all three. But I'm curious to see, because it's funny how Smith was the last one of them drafted. Usually that works out for the team who ended up picking them last. So, I think Devonta Smith's going to have a really good career here.
Jeff Kerr, CBS on Twitter. Check out all of his work over at CBS Sports. Covers the Eagles and the NFL with us here on 97.3 ESPN. Joins us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which means, Jeff, we will see you for Football Friday this week here on 97.3 ESPN.
Yeah, hopefully I get to see Shang-Chi before I come on here, because then I can be like, oh, look what I saw, Josh. Look what I saw, Mike. You know, I got to watch this before you guys did, if you're Marvel fans, of course.
Well, first of all, I'm a Marvel fan and I'm a movie fan. Gil doesn't really watch movies.
So, what a bummer.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you say that really quick before I let you go, because we got to hit the break. But the movie topic came up earlier because I was talking with Jason Fitz from ESPN Radio, and he's a big movie junkie like I am. And I said, Jay, I'm a huge Marvel fan, but my only concern is the two best movies I saw this year were not Black Widow. It was The Protege with Maggie Q, which was incredible, and Cruella, which totally blew me away.
Cruella was my favorite movie this year. I agree with you on that one. Cruella was fantastic. The Protege, I like. Maggie Q is an excellent actress, by the way. I'll tell you what is another good one. And again, it's more of a family movie, but I enjoyed it. Jungle Cruise. That actually was pretty good.
That was one I did not see because my policy has been, if it's on Disney Premiere, I refuse to pay the money because the cost of Disney Premiere Plus is the cost of 2 movie tickets and a medium popcorn.
So I have AMC Stubs A-list, so I get to see three free movies a week. So that's what I did, and I actually saw it twice. There's a lot of movies I've seen twice because they're not coming out at the pace that they usually do in the summer. That's going to be in the fall. So obviously, I'm going to get the bang for my $21 a month.
There you go. That's a good deal for you. So yeah, I will see Shang-Chi on Sunday.
Okay,
that's when I'm going to see it because my usual I do is I watch movies when I'm not watching football games. That's kind of like my thing. So like I'll watch Shang-Chi at a movie time that will be done in time for the Notre Dame football game on Sunday. You know, or like during the fall, it's like I know that there's a MAC game I don't care about, so I'll go watch it like on a Wednesday night kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, you know, you got to get some of that action. You always got to get action. That's part of lifestyle if you're a football junkie.
For me, I love football, but action is something that I watch while I'm at the gym. So I'm not like 100% focused in, whereas I might be for like on Saturday, Clemson, Georgia kind of thing.
Before I go, this is what I tell people. As much as I love football, I try not to oversaturate myself with it because if I hate it by Friday, that's not a good sign. I cannot hate football. So I do try to stay away from like Thursday night college football. Thursday night football, the NFL, I'm all pumped up to watch. So I try to stay away from some Tuesday, Wednesday games because of that.
Also, you're in TN Fantasy Football League, so.
That is true. I'm in way too many. By the way, we're in the middle of drafting and we get 18 hours to pick at CBS. I literally wait till like 17 hours and 30 minutes just to tick everybody off. Because they're like, why don't you just pick? I'm like, pick Derrick Henry. I'm like, how do you know I'm going to pick him? Pick Miles Sanders. How do you know I'm going to pick him? Because we know you. That's what you're going to pick. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And I just wait. I just make them wait. It's fine. The draft goes more than a week because of me.
All right, Jeff, we'll talk Friday.
Sounds good. Thanks, Josh.
Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, and Jeff Kerr's appearance on the Bash being brought to you by the expert solar team of New Jersey, EMT Solar and Roofing and Solar Guardians. Your solar journey starts today by visiting ESPNsolar.com. We'll wrap up the show. Coming up on the other side, I'll get to the rest of your messages. As promised, Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN.
This Saturday, college football on ESPN Radio is back.
Welcome, everybody, to the college football season.
High-stakes game, 2 great programs. I mean, it's a heavyweight matchup right out of the gate.
It's a monster opening weekend showdown as the 3rd-ranked Clemson Tigers face the 5th-ranked Georgia Bulldogs. Number 3 Clemson, number 5 Georgia. Coverage begins Saturday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio. The nation's top college football action on 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's football station.
Bank of Sea Isle is Cape May County's lending expert, standing strong with you at First Bank of Sea Isle. Find out how First Bank of Sea Isle can simplify your banking needs. Your partner since 1888. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig finishing up the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Best of the Sports Bash coming up next. If you missed our conversations with Jeff Mosher or Paul Hudrick or Jason Fitz, we'll have all those interviews coming up next. And, of course, if you miss any interview, it's on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. And don't forget to check us out tomorrow. We'll be back on the Sports Bash. I'll be filling in a couple more days for Mike Gill. He's on vacation this week here on 97.3 ESPN. But as promised, I want to get to some of your text messages, some of your messages coming in to the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's been a very busy day. A lot of messages flooding in throughout the day, a lot of different topics. A bit of a random comment as well. But I want to get to some of these. First of all, Joey D. Inventner says, Josh, is it okay to split the pot in a championship match of fantasy football? And two, would you ever go in a big money league with a partner? I mean, here's the problem. Okay, number two is a yes. Number two is the easy answer. Yes. If it's a big money league and you have somebody you can rely on to hold up their end of the bargain, then yeah, sure, why not? Right? Like that's not ridiculous. The problem I have is, as a general principle, I would say no, it's not okay to split the pot in a championship match of fantasy football. But I would also say, as a caveat to that, is there a reason why? Like, I feel like there's a little bit of missing information here. Another message came in. Anonymous messenger says the Heisman issue with busts in the NFL is because most of them are drafted to bad teams that are properly developed in the NFL. It's partially true. I would say that it's true, for certain players, not other players. Johnny Manziel was always going to be a bit of a mess, right? Johnny Manziel was always going to have problems in the NFL, in my opinion, just because of who he is. Same thing with Tim Tebow. Same thing with Matt Leinart. Same thing with Jason White. Same thing with Eric Crouch. I just don't think they were NFL quarterbacks. I think they were guys who their skill sets were customized for offenses that allowed them to do their thing, but they were never going to be able to process information at a high level in the NFL. So it's true for some guys, not true for everybody. Thanks to everybody who chimed in the show. I know I missed a couple messages throughout the show, but thank you. We'll get to you tomorrow, guys, here on 97.3 ESPN.
The Philadelphia Eagles play on 97.3 ESPN FM. Listen to every game with the voice of the Eagles, Merrill Reese and Mike Quick. Pre-game coverage from the Eagles radio network starts 1 hour before kickoff. Your official home for Eagles football in South Jersey is 97.3 ESPN FM. Brought to you locally by
First Bank of Sea Isle, Cape May County's community bank. Cape Regional Health System. For a healthier life, call 609-463-CAPE. Boardwalk Honda. From Maine to Miami, nobody beats a Boardwalk deal. Online at boardwalkhonda.com. GMS Law. Make the right call with 4 convenient locations to serve you. Visit gmslaw.com. Calvi Electric. Now offering residential services for your home and business. Jim Malamut at Green Tree Mortgage. Your best play to refinance today. Deborah Heart and Lung Center. DemandDeborah.org. BMW of Atlantic City. Closer than you think. Online at bmwatlanticcity.com.